Chapter 5985. Jun Hongcheng quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Although it was hard for him to accept the fact that so many cultivators had fallen, the fact that Ling Sun was still alive gave him the greatest comfort. If even Ling Sun had fallen, then he would really have no hope left. After hearing the news, Jun Xianxiao and the others also quietly breathed a sigh of relief. At least the young master was still alive. Patriarch, I believe that the young master is blessed by heaven. He must be on his way back. Let's wait in the family with peace of mind, Jun Xianxiao said. Jun Hongcheng nodded slightly. After thinking about it carefully, he still felt a little uneasy. Send someone to the Emperor Cloud City to inquire. If something happened to Ling Sun, the D family would have already known. Yes, I will send someone immediately, Jun Xianxiao replied. The D family had been enemies with them for many years. If the D family killed Jun Lingxuan, they would definitely spread the news immediately. Similarly, if this news did not spread, then they could be sure that Ling Sun was safe and sound. As long as he was still alive, it didn't matter if he came back a little later. When Shu Yu came out of seclusion and saw that the Jun family only had a few cultivators left, he couldn't help but be shocked. From the first time he saw Deep Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, he knew that these two people were not simple. However, before he set off, he had already warned Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou. If these two people could do as he said, there shouldn't be any problems. However, who would have thought that in the end, they would be defeated by the other party and lose everything? For a moment, he couldn't figure out the reason. Jun Hongcheng was naturally very polite to Shu Yu. Lord Shu Yu, Ling Sun should be on his way back. This time, the matter is really Sai. Patriarch Jun, don't be too sad. Shu Yu's expression was complicated. At a time like this, he had nothing to say other than words of comfort. On the other hand, Jun Hongcheng and Xiao Yanlong had paid a huge price to invite Shu Yu to teach Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Yanlong. If Shu Yu was unwilling to continue teaching after such a thing happened, wouldn't that be terrible? I'm afraid my son's performance this time has disappointed you. Hearing this, Shu Yu glanced at Jun Hongcheng indifferently. In his heart, he understood the purpose of the latter's words. Jun family head, don't worry. When Ling Sun returns, I will properly guide him in his cultivation. It's not necessarily a bad thing for young people to experience setbacks during their training. As long as they're willing to work hard, there's still hope to change everything in the future. Jun Hongcheng immediately let out a sigh of relief. His heart that was hanging in the air also calmed down. He said in pleasant surprise, Then I'll have to trouble you. You don't have to be so polite. This is my duty. Shu Yu's expression was calm. He knew very well that Jun Lingxuan was indeed not as good as Di Beichun. However, since Jun Lingxuan was his disciple, he had to find a way to improve Jun Lingxuan's strength. Otherwise, when the news spread out in the future, he would be disgraced. When the Jun family sent people to the Emperor Cloud City to inquire about the news, the Di family also sent people to the vicinity of the Jun family to inquire about the news. Whether the Qing devil had come out or not was a question that everyone was very concerned about at the moment. Di Beichen and the others naturally hoped that the Qing devil wouldn't come out. Once this guy appeared, no one knew what kind of changes would occur in the upper world. Chapter 5986. Inside the room, the sunlight shone through the cracks in the windowsill, giving off a warm feeling. Beichun, according to the news from the spies, Jun Lingxuan hasn't returned to the Jun family yet. I think the nine-tailed Inferno Fox's judgment is correct. Di Xiaofeng's face was full of smiles. He felt that the Di family's luck was really good. Although all the major forces had gained a lot from the Divine Hall of Light, Beichun, Hongzhuang, Yinshe Ling'er, and Yinju were the ones who had gained the most. Di Beichun nodded. I'm afraid that Qing Devil didn't realize that possession was useless until the moment he left. He couldn't leave the ancient battlefield at all. Recalling Qing Devil's smug look, Di Beichun found it very interesting. He had made this guy happy for so long, but in the end he fell into despair. It's better if a scourge like him doesn't come out. Thinking of Qing Devil, Di Xiaofeng's eyes became hazy. Now the Jun family is still hoping that Jun Lingxuan can come back as soon as possible. If they know that Jun Lingxuan can never come back, they will definitely collapse. Maybe. Di Baichen raised his eyebrows. Tit for tat. If the Jun family hadn't been so arrogant and made trouble for them all these years, they wouldn't have fallen into such a situation now. In the end, all of this was their own choice. Bailey Hongzhuang was very busy after returning to the Di family. On one hand, she had to communicate with her family. Whether it was the immortal realm or the crossing immortal realm, Lan Yunxiao and the others were confused. They didn't know where these places were. When they were in the meeting hall, they didn't have a nerve to interrupt. When they came back, they naturally had to ask Hongzhuang. Otherwise, when they talked in the future, they couldn't even figure out the situation. How could they continue to talk? Bailey Hongzhuang naturally answered all the questions patiently. If it wasn't for the forest world and the chaos ring, they wouldn't have known about the existence of the immortal domain and the crossing immortal domain. However, after meeting Shu Yu and Qing Devil, the crossing celestial realm and the immortal realm didn't seem so mysterious anymore. They seemed to be closer to each other. They didn't know when they would be able to truly come into contact with the crossing immortal domain or even the immortal domain. However, they had a vague premonition that it wasn't too far away. The Temple of Light had given them a lot of help, which had greatly improved their cultivation. It was precisely because of this that they had to grasp this opportunity and increase their cultivation as soon as possible, because no one knew when they would suddenly face an unexpected problem. When Lan Yunxiao and the others heard that there was the crossing immortal domain and even the immortal realms above the upper realm, they were extremely shocked. When they first learned about the upper realm, they found it hard to believe. After seeing the various aspects of the upper realm, the shock in their hearts grew even stronger. However, they didn't know much about the upper realm. Now that an even higher realm had appeared, it was really hard for them to accept. I suddenly feel that I don't know anything about this world. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but sigh. When we were in the lower realm, we were really frogs in a well. Yulin Feng also nodded. Hongzhuang, are you saying that even the head of the Di family didn't know about the immortal domain? Chapter 5987. Family head and the others only know that there is a higher plane above the upper realm. They've heard of the crossing immortal domain before, but they don't know much about it. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. In fact, even if we've heard of the crossing immortal domain and the immortal domain, we still haven't found a way to go there. Could it be that their cultivation hasn't reached the required level, so they don't know about it? Si Tiyin's eyes darkened. Back then, he only knew about the Penglai Island, but he never thought about going there. It seemed like an unreachable distance, but as long as their cultivation reached a certain level, they would be able to reach it. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and shook her head. It shouldn't be. The Di family is already one of the top families in the upper realm. Even if their cultivation hasn't reached the required level, someone would have been able to reach it after so many years. However, there hasn't been any news. Currently, we only know that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Sou's master, Shu Yu, have been to the crossing immortal domain. However, he hasn't mentioned anything about it, so we can't make any conclusions. As she said that, Bailey Hongzhuang was also thinking about whether she should tell them about the abandoned immortal forest. However, if she said that, everyone would definitely want to go to the abandoned immortal forest to take a look. Furthermore, they had accepted Granny Hua and the others' gifts and pointers, and they had promised not to bring anyone there. If they brought everyone there rashly, they would make Granny Hua and the others unhappy. Then, they would lose more than they gained. After all, Granny Hua and the others were their only way to understand the immortal domain. If they offended them, not only would they feel bad, but it would also be difficult to find such a good master in the future. Rather than that, they might as well put it aside for now and wait until they were more familiar with Granny Hua and the others, or until they had a certain level of understanding of the immortal domain. Hongzhuang, what are you thinking about? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was suddenly in a daze, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but wave her hand in front of her eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang regained her senses and smiled. Nothing, I'm just thinking about where the entrance to the crossing immortal domain is. How long has it been since you came to the upper realm? Lan Yunxiao smiled faintly. You've already reached this level so quickly. I believe that you'll definitely come in the future. In the past, he thought Hong Zhuang's strength was very outstanding, but the current situation made him realize that he had underestimated his daughter's strength. She was far more outstanding than they had imagined. Even in the face of the upper realm's many geniuses, perhaps in the future realm's immortal domain, the immortal domain's immortal domain. But if not S, it's that is of it is T S T S S. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at everyone. Judging from their complexions and auras, she could tell that they had been doing well. They hadn't been in the D family for long, but her father and the other strengths had increased greatly. Chapter 5988. During this period of time, Lin Yinxing and the others took great care of them. They didn't need to do anything on a daily basis and would send cultivation resources to them every few days. These days of peacefully cultivating without having to worry about anything seemed like a long time ago. Aside from worrying about the safety of Hong Zhuang and the others, they couldn't be picky about anything else. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a warm smile. In fact, she also understood that her mother and the others wouldn't suffer any grievances here. Her only worry was that they weren't familiar with this place and would have some restrictions. However, thinking about it carefully, her father and the others had been here for quite some time. Even if they weren't familiar with this place when they first arrived, they gradually became more familiar with it after such a long time. Father, I plan to make a trip to the Bailey family in the next few days. Do you all want to come with me? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. No matter what, she was still the head of the Bailey family. She felt that it wasn't appropriate for her to not personally visit for so many days. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao and the others looked at each other and nodded in unison. That's your family. We naturally have to go and take a look. Although the Bailey family couldn't be compared to the D family, everyone was still filled with curiosity towards the Bailey family. Hong Zhuang had only been in the upper realm for a short period of time, but she had already become the head of family. As her family, how could they not go and take a look? Moreover, in the days that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't here, the cultivators of the D family who stayed in the Bailey family were very polite to them. Just from their attitude, they knew that Hongzhuang was definitely very respected in the Bailey family. All of this made them feel incomparably proud. That's great. Bailey Hongzhuang was delighted. I'll tell Beichin and the others about this matter later. Also, the cultivators of the family have been away for so long. I'm sure they want to go back and take a look. In the past, it was a bit troublesome to go back and forth between the two families. Now that the transportation array had been built, it was more convenient to go back and forth. You arrange it. We'll listen to you. Lan Yinxiao looked at Xiao so dotingly. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her residence, she found Beichin and Di Xiaofeng together. Seeing her appear, the two revealed smiles. You're back so soon? Di Beichin's smile, as warm as the sun. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I came back to discuss something with you. Wifey, just say what you want to do, I will agree. Di Beichin chuckled. No matter what Hong Zhuang wanted to do, he would try his best to satisfy her. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. She always knew that no matter what she wanted to do, Beichin would support her as always. But when she heard this, her heart still felt warm. I plan to bring father and mother to the Bailey family. At the same time, I can let some of the cultivators who are studying medicine go back. Originally, I didn't expect to stay here for so long. It's just that we went to the ancient battlefield and spent a lot of time here. I want to understand the current situation of the Bailey family. If I can raise the family status, that would be great. She had never forgotten her responsibility. Because of her disappearance, the family's inheritance was lost, causing the Bailey family to fall from a top aristocratic family to a small family now. Since she was the reason for their decline, she had the responsibility to lead the Bailey family to greater heights. Chapter 5989. Grandpa, I know you can't see what I'm doing now, but I still hope to tell you that I've done my best to make up for my regrets. No problem. Di Beichin smiled faintly. Just as the most important thing for him now was to establish the Dark Sacred Assembly, Hong Zhuang's most important thing was to make the Bailey family stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Xiaofeng. Big brother, Ask Yin if she plans to go back. If she wants to go back and take a look, then let's go back together. Okay. Di Xiaofeng nodded. I'll ask later. I think she must want to go back and take a look. Coincidentally, there's nothing to do recently. There's no news from the Jun family yet, so we can take care of some things at hand. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. I have to go find father later. I forgot to tell him about the blood spirit stone last time. They had already gained a lot in the ancient battlefield. Not only had their cultivation improved rapidly, but their talent had also improved. In the future, their cultivation speed would be even faster. If they didn't know about the existence of the immortal region, perhaps they wouldn't be so anxious. Now that they knew everything, they only felt that increasing their strength was the most important thing. Not only them, but their father also needed to increase his strength. If it weren't for the younger generation, their father and the others would have also gone to the ancient battlefield this time. Their improvement would probably be very shocking. Di Xiaofeng understood Di Beichun's thoughts. They had a lot of blood spirit stones in their hands. Using blood spirit stones to cultivate was faster than using high-grade spirit stones. If their father and the others' cultivation improved a little, the family would be safer. Although the Jun family and the Xiao family had suffered a setback this time, they weren't worried about the strength of the two families if they really clashed. However, there was one person they had to be wary of. That was Shuyu. This person was stronger than Di Yujue. If Shuyu was determined to help the Jun family, once a battle broke out, she would be a big problem. Only when their father's strength increased would everything be safe. That's right. The most important thing now is to increase the strength of the family. Our cultivation has improved a lot during this time, so it's good to slow down a little and stabilize it, Di Xiaofeng said. Di Beichun nodded slightly. That was exactly what he was worried about. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the blood spirit stones in her hand to Di Beichun and said, I gave a portion to my parents earlier. You can take the rest. Hearing this, Di Beichun glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang. It was just a glance, and there was no need to say anything else. When Di Yujue saw Di Beichun take out so many blood spirit stones, he was extremely shocked. He originally wanted to refuse. As a father, how could he accept his child's cultivation resources? However, after hearing Di Beichun's words, he still accepted the blood spirit stone, feeling comforted. He thought back to when Beichun went missing. That was the most difficult time for him. Guilt, self-blame, worry, and all kinds of emotions gathered together. He had thought more than once that as long as Beichun could come back, no matter what kind of person he was, even if he was a wastrel who lost his ambition, he would treat him well. However, Di Beichun's performance completely exceeded his expectations and gave him a big surprise. Now, he only felt that having such a son was his pride. Everything back then was worth it. Chapter 5990. Father, Hong Zhuang and I plan to go to the Bailey family. If there's anything, send someone to inform us. Di Beichun smiled. Don't worry, there shouldn't be anything big in the near future. When Lin Yinxing knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was going back to the Bailey family, she called Di Xiaofeng over. When Di Xiaofeng arrived, he saw that not only was Lin Yinxing here, but Xiao Wanrong was also here. Mother, why did you call me over? Di Xiaofeng asked. However, Lin Yinxing didn't answer him. Instead, she looked at Xiao Wanrong and the two smiled at him. Being stared at by the two, Di Xiaofeng's heart felt numb. He couldn't help but ask again, Grandmother, Mother, if you want to say something, just say it. I'm not used to looking at me like this. Seeing this, Xiao Wanrong laughed out loud and said, Xiaofeng, you're not young anymore. Beichun is your younger brother, and he's been married for many years. What do you think about marriage? Di Xiaofeng was slightly stunned. After understanding what was going on, he calmed down. Usually, grandmother and mother would pay the most attention to this point when they were together. In fact, Mother wasn't very anxious about this matter. The most anxious person was grandmother. Unlike the past, when grandmother mentioned this matter, he would try his best to avoid it. This time, he didn't feel repulsed by this question. Lin Yinxing knew her son the best. Just by noticing Di Xiaofeng's expression, she already understood a bit. Xiaofeng, I see that you've always been very close to that Miss Yin Yan. Back then, You were unwilling to contact the girl we introduced. It was because of her, right? Di Xiaofeng's expression was a bit awkward. He was a grown man, so it was inevitable that he would feel embarrassed when this question was brought up. However, he still nodded. Lin Yunqing and Xiao Wanrong both smiled. It was rare to see Di Xiaofeng like this. You're not young anymore. It's normal to have someone you like. Lin Yunqing's smile was gentle, and there was a motherly love in her eyes. Di Xiaofeng was a little worried. Mother, you know she's from the Bailey family. He felt that his family had never had any prejudice against social status, but he was still a little worried. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's expression, Lin Yunqing had already guessed what he was worried about. She smiled faintly and said, I know what you were worried about, but I believe you also understand that we are not people who care about these things. Thinking back to the time when Bailey Yunyin had come to the clan and walked so close to Xiaofeng, they had already understood in their hearts. What's more, when you really like someone, it's impossible to hide the look in your eyes. As a mother, no matter how slow-witted she was, she could still understand. After experiencing so many things, she had already seen through these things. As for her two sons, she only wanted them to be happy from the bottom of their hearts. When Beichen and Hong Zhuang got together, how many people thought that they were not suitable for each other? The final result also proved that this was the best choice. Children and grandchildren had their own blessings. Who knew when they would bring them a huge surprise? Xiao Wanrong also nodded. Grandmother only hopes that you can get married early and hold a grandson. As long as the other party is a sensible girl, grandmother will support it. Chapter 5991. In fact, he had always planned to tell his family about this. However, he was worried that something he didn't want to see would happen, so he delayed it. He didn't think that his grandmother and mother had already figured it out, and he didn't need to worry at all. Really, the ecstatic Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask again. He just wanted to make sure. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's excited appearance, Xiao Wanrong and Lin Yunqing couldn't help but laugh. The smile in their eyes grew wider and wider. Of course it's true. Di Xiaofeng's smile spread from the bottom of his heart. He believed that when he told Yun Yin this news, she would be very happy. Xiaofeng, you've really grown up. Look at how happy you are. I don't usually see you like this. Xiao Wanrong teased with a smile. Her eyes were filled with unconcealable love. In addition to being happy, Lin Yunqing's expression also became more serious. Xiaofeng, you are the young master of the Lin family. I have to discuss this matter with your grandfather first. Although Xiaofeng was her son, he had an even more important identity as the young master of the Lin family. The marriage of the young master was a big event for the entire family. She had to tell her father about this matter first. After confirming it, she had to go to the Bailey family to propose marriage. This kind of etiquette couldn't be neglected. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly and smiled. Mother, I'll have to trouble you with this matter. Lin Yunqing chuckled and patted Di Xiaofeng's hand. She nodded and said, Don't worry. Leave this matter to me. I'll help you prepare it. Okay? Then I'll have to trouble grandmother and mother. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were as bright as shooting stars. He had always been serious about Yin Yin. Naturally, he didn't want to treat her unfairly. During this period of time, Yin Yin had always been with him. However, he could still faintly feel that Yin Yin was unconsciously revealing her worries. Although he had always assured Yin Yin that even if the family didn't agree, he would find a way to convince them. However, he also knew that before the dust settled, Yin Yin could not be worried. Fortunately, he could finally relax now. Bailey family. When Bailey Fan heard that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had returned to the family, he was overjoyed. He immediately led a group of clansmen to welcome them. From the disciples who had returned, he had already found out about the master's performance in the ancient battlefield. Even though he had not seen it with his own eyes, he could imagine how magnificent the scene was. In the past, the Di family's biggest rivals were the Jun family and the Xiao family. Now that the Jun family and the Xiao family were no longer their opponents, the Di family would only become stronger and stronger. Most importantly, when the family's disciples went out to gain experience, he was always unable to eat or sleep in peace. He was worried that they would get injured and die, because as a small family, they had no advantage at all in this kind of experience. To put it bluntly, They could only pick up scraps because once they encountered a large clan's team, they had no ability to face them head-on other than retreating. Otherwise, the slightest carelessness would result in the entire army being wiped out. He felt very helpless about this, but he could not change all of this because every small clan was like this. It would take a long time for a small family to be promoted to a large family, or for a cultivator with extraordinary talent to lead the family to become powerful. Chapter 5992. Even though the family head wasn't usually in the family and rarely came back, he could tell from the vitality on the faces of the family's young cultivators that everything had changed. In the past, everyone had always hoped to change everything, but they didn't have the ability to do so. Now, everyone was filled with hope. They didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation or confusion about the future, only the heart to fight. He never dared to imagine such a scene in the past. Family head. Welcome, family head. Bai Li Fan led the group of elders and disciples in saluting. Unlike when Bailey Hongzhuang first came to the Bailey family, everyone was filled with admiration from the bottom of their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Bai Li Fan with a smile. Second family head, let me introduce you. These are my family members, my maternal grandfather, maternal grandmother. Hearing this introduction, everyone realized that these people were Bailey Hongzhuang's family members. Actually, they had already heard this news from the Bailey family's cultivators. After all, they were cultivators from the Bailey family. Even though everyone knew that they wouldn't be bullied if they followed the family head to the D family, they had been gone for so long that everyone was very concerned about their situation. Thus, they would still occasionally exchange letters. Greetings, I am the second family head, Bai Li Fan. Bai Li Fan revealed a smile. Speaking of which, they weren't related to Lan Yunxiao and the others in any way, but they were the family head's relatives, which made them members of the Bailey family. Second family head. Lan Yunxiao and the others also cupped their hands with warm smiles on their faces. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Bai Li Fan was older than Lan Yunxiao, but now he was addressing Hong Zhuang as family head. It really was a bit strange. However, from the expressions of the Bailey family members, they understood that even though Hong Zhuang hadn't returned for so long, her status and prestige in the Bailey family hadn't changed in the slightest. Everyone looked at her with respect and admiration. The relationship between Hong Zhuang and this family was much closer than they had imagined. Let's not talk while standing. Let's go in first, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. She had never felt unfamiliar with the Bailey family. This was her family. It had always been this way. Right. Bai Li Fan hurriedly said, Look, I'm so happy to see you all back that I actually let everyone stand here. Everyone's face was filled with kind smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang was like a moon surrounded by stars as she walked into the Bailey family's meeting hall. Send someone to prepare some drinks and snacks, Bai Li Fan ordered. In the conference hall, everyone gathered together, and the atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. Family head, we've already heard about what happened at the ancient battlefield. Congratulations, family head. The first elder raised his cup and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He no longer had any doubts about Bailey Hongzhuang. She was their family's savior. Not only the first elder, but all the elders present had the same thought. Back then, they had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to take away their family. They had always thought that the second family head's decision was too crazy and risky. But now, it seemed that their foresight was too terrible. They were far inferior to the second family head's foresight. Chapter 5993. Everyone did not understand why she was doing this. Because of this, they were full of goodwill towards Bailey Hongzhuang and only wanted to do their best to help her. They could not reject Bailey Hongzhuang's generous help, but they felt a little guilty to accept it, so they could only do their best to treat her well. Let's toast to the family head. Bai Li Fan smiled. Congratulations, family head. Everyone raised their glasses. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her glass and drank the wine in one gulp. This time in the ancient battlefield, everyone has gained a lot. I believe that our Bailey family will get better and better. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were full of anticipation. She would definitely make the Bailey family a great family once again and return to the peak of glory. Once she said this, Everyone's eyes shone with a dazzling light of hope. This time, I have brought back all the cultivators who had gone to learn about medicine. I plan to let some of them stay in the family. The medical skills taught by Dr. Wu can already treat many illnesses. There are also some talented doctors who have come back to visit their families. I will bring them back after that. When their medical skills are strong enough, they will come back. As for the rest, I will leave it to the second family head. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly explained her plan. Other than that, I have also prepared some miraculous pills and medicines. If anyone comes to seek medical treatment, they can solve it themselves. If they can't solve it, send someone to bring them to the D family. I will give them a heads up so you can rest assured. She had too many things to do now and could not put all her energy into the Bailey family. The medical aristocratic family always had a transcendent status no matter the time. Most importantly, no one could guarantee that they would not be seriously injured or fall ill. Therefore, no one was willing to offend a family like this. This was the Bailey family's best protection. The remuneration for treating patients and saving people would naturally not be small. With this remuneration, the Bailey family would be able to grow faster. Now, both she and Dr. Wu were famous. In fact, there were many people who came to seek treatment from Dr. Wu. It was because of this that she made a plan. In the future, the D family would not help anyone except for the people brought by the Bailey family. This way, everyone would know how much the D family valued the Bailey family. Even if they were just a middleman, the other party would remember this favor after helping them. Favors may seem like nothing, but they were extremely important. No one knew when they would need it. Bailey Fan and the others were smart. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang, they understood what she meant. They understood that this seemingly simple matter actually contained a lot of benefits. Even though they had always been looking forward to the day when their family could become powerful, everyone understood that it wasn't that simple to make a family powerful. They couldn't even find a reliable method. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's simple plan had already pointed out a clear path. Chapter 5994. Lan Yunxiao and the others have been listening silently. Before this, they hadn't heard Bailey Hongzhuang mention much about the Bailey family. Now that they heard Hongzhuang's plan, they finally understood that Hongzhuang was actually so considerate of the Bailey family. This plan seemed simple, but it was very reliable. Lan Yunxiao's gaze gradually softened. His daughter was really amazing now. He always felt that Hongzhuang was still a child, so he couldn't help but worry. Now, it seemed that Hongzhuang was much more mature than they thought. She had long been able to take charge of things on her own. In fact, she was far better than them. The doctors who came back with them all had expectant looks on their faces. During their time in the D family, they had been studying medicine with all their might. No one dared to slack off. They understood that this opportunity was too rare. If they didn't cherish it, they would truly be letting down the family head. Of course, they also knew that their current medical skills weren't enough. They would continue to study and improve. Even though they studied very hard every day, they had never felt so fulfilled. They seemed to be able to see the future of the family head becoming stronger and stronger. In fact, after Bailey Hongzhuang became the Holy Maiden, the Bailey family's status had been constantly rising. Their former competitors were now thinking of ways to mend the rift between them. Some families that they had once been unable to climb up to had even taken the initiative to express their goodwill. He felt that this situation would become even more obvious after the news of the ancient battlefield spread. And all of this was because of the family head. If it weren't for the family head, how could they have such glory? Di Baichen smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. His wife was indeed worthy of being the family head of the Bailey family 1,000 years ago. She handled this kind of matter with ease. The overall plan had already been prepared, so there was no need to worry at all. The Bailey family of today was very different from before. The Holy Maiden was the family head, and she had the support of the D family. In addition to her medical skills, it would be strange if they didn't rise up. Although it would take a long time for them to reach the level of the D family, it was inevitable that they would get better and better. In order to become a top-notch clan, in addition to influence, one's cultivation must also increase. Without sufficient strength, it was impossible to reach such a level. However, Since he had chosen the path of a medical family, it would be much easier for him than for others. The rest would only require time to accumulate. On the other hand, the number of people in the Bailey family had to be increased. Fortunately, his wife had already thought through all of this and did not immediately have the intention of making the Bailey family powerful to such an extent. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished talking about the plan, the atmosphere became even livelier. Amidst the crisscrossing cups, it was a harmonious scene. After the party was over, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Fan talked in detail. Patriarch, I heard from Tianheng and the others that Jun Lingxuan seems to have been possessed. Bailey Fan asked doubtfully. Regarding this, he had always been very surprised. However, Tianheng said that it had been possessed, and then he said that he had regained control of the body. This confused him. Logically speaking, if the body had been possessed, it should be impossible to regain control of the body. That was completely destroying the soul. Chapter 5995. But why did I hear that he took it back? That's just Xiao Sou's trick to scare people. Hearing this, Bailey Fan was slightly taken aback, but he quickly accepted this answer. I see. I've said that the possibility of taking it back is too small. Bailey Fan sighed and frowned again. In that case, won't this matter be even more troublesome? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and shook her head. Xiao Sou's wishful thinking may fall through. Don't worry, things aren't that bad. Bailey Fan looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing her confident appearance, his heart was completely at ease. He trusted the family head very much. Even if the family head was so young, and even his son Tianheng was older than the family head, he knew very well how much power the young family head could unleash. The main reason I came back this time is to tell you about the family's future plans. I have a lot of things to do, so I can't stay here too often. However, if you have anything to say, send someone to inform me. I'll definitely deal with it as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang reminded. Bailey Fan smiled and nodded. His heart was filled with gratitude. Thank you, family head. This is my responsibility. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and stared at Bailey Fan. In my heart, the Bailey family is my family. The family's matters are my matters. I hope you can understand this and truly treat me as a member of the Bailey family. Looking at those sincere and serious eyes, Bailey Fan's heart was filled with shock. However, he also understood that there were some mistakes in his way of thinking. I understand. While Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest stayed at the Bailey family, the Xiao family was in a different situation. Xiao Sou had always wanted to visit the Jun family, but a few days ago, she heard that some of the Jun family's cultivators had already returned. However, Jun Lingxuan had yet to return. This news didn't make her too worried. The other cultivators had all returned, so how could Jun Lingxuan not return? She had begun to think of marrying Qing Devil as soon as possible. After all, she was already Qing Devil's woman. Moreover, with Qing Devil's strength, he would definitely go to the crossing immortal domain or even the immortal domain in the future. For her, it was a strange place full of yearning. For Qing Devil, it used to be his hometown. When she heard Shu Yu's master talk about the crossing immortal domain, she was very envious and hoped that she could go there herself one day. Shu Yu had merely gone to the celestial realm, yet he already had a transcendent status in the upper realm. If she had gone to the celestial realm, wouldn't that be even more impressive? With that in mind, Xiao Sou went to look for Xiao Yanlong. Father, we are anxious to wait here all the time. Why don't we go directly to the Jun family? She had been waiting here all the time because she couldn't hold back the anxiety in her heart. After going to the Jun family, if Qing Devil came back, she would be the first to know. Seeing Xiao Sou's anxious look, Xiao Yanlong was a little surprised. He vaguely felt that his daughter seemed to have special feelings for Qing Devil. If it was only for interests, Sou shouldn't care so much. However, no matter what the purpose was, it didn't matter if they went to the Jun family. On the contrary, it could shorten the distance between them and the Jun family. Chapter 5996. Seeing that Xiao Yanlong agreed, Xiao Sou also breathed a sigh of relief. She really couldn't wait any longer. What she was most worried about now was whether the Qing Devil would want to come to the Jun family. However, According to their previous conversation, such an environment would not do any harm to the Azure Fiend, so he should be willing to come. All these things made her a little confused for a while. The only thing she was sure of was that she wanted to see the Qing Devil. When Xiao Sudong heard that Xiao Sou was going to the Jun family, he didn't choose to go with her. Recently, his mood was very complicated, and he couldn't even concentrate on his cultivation. He began to miss the past. Before he became an ally with the Jun family, both his father and sister were not like this. At that time, many people said that the Jun family did things by hook or by crook. At that time, he also had the same idea. However, all the things that happened later were beyond his expectations. Even if he wanted to change, he had no chance. And now he found that his father and sister had been assimilated by the Jun family. He was still powerless to change all this. The most important thing was that when he saw that Di Beichun was open and above board and had so many friends, he couldn't help but envy him. In fact, putting everything aside, he also admired Di Beichun very much. It was just that the positions of the two sides were completely different. The more outstanding Di Beichun was, the greater the threat to them. He hoped that Jun Lingxuan was such a person. Then they wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. However, Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to have extraordinary talent in this regard. Even Di Xiaofeng couldn't do this at that time. In just a few years, he had already gained a firm foothold here and had so many friends. All these were things that they couldn't envy. He couldn't be the only one who envied this. When Jun Hongqing knew that Xiao Yanlong and Xiao Sou had come, a big smile appeared on his face. In fact, as the waiting time became longer and longer, he was a little uncertain in his heart. He was only worried that something unexpected would happen in the process. If Ling Sun was unable to return, he was also worried that the relationship with the Xiao family would be severed because of this. At that time, the Jun family would be in an even more difficult situation. This was obviously something he didn't want to see, but based on the current situation, he couldn't take the initiative to contact the Xiao clan. However, now that Xiao Yanlong and the other two had taken the initiative to come, and were so concerned about Ling Sun's situation, it made him feel a wave of warmth, and he completely heaved a sigh of relief. Hong Chung, Ling Sun hasn't returned yet? When Xiao Yanlong saw Jun Hong Chung, he smiled and greeted him. After the two sides formed an alliance, he came to the Jun family very freely and did not feel restrained at all. A hint of helplessness flashed across Jun Hongcheng's face when he heard that. He sighed and nodded. Ling Sun hasn't returned yet. Perhaps he was delayed by something on the way. A hint of disappointment flashed in Xiao Sou's eyes. She had hoped to see Azure Demon when she arrived. Although she didn't know Qing Devil for long, she couldn't forget everything that happened in the ancient battlefield. Especially when she heard Qing Devil talk about the immortal realm, she was filled with endless yearning. It was too difficult to go to the immortal realm with her own strength. She could only reach there smoothly if she was with Qing Devil. Chapter 5997. Jun Hong Chung did not ignore the disappointment and eagerness on Xiao Sou's face, and immediately became even more satisfied with his future daughter-in-law. At that time, Ling Sun spent a lot of effort to pursue Xiao Sou, and he was not sure whether Xiao Sou agreed to the engagement because the Di family was hopeless or because she really liked Ling Sun. Now it seemed that his original worries were unnecessary. His son was still very charming. No matter what the reason was at the beginning, at least now Xiao Sou must be sincere to Ling Sun. The current situation made him feel more depressed than when he was suppressed by the Di family many years ago. At least the Di family had always been in a stable state, and not like now, when they were in the limelight. If Xiao Sou's position as the Holy Maiden of Light had not been snatched away, then the current situation would not have fallen to this point. Unfortunately, the heavens did not fulfill people's wishes, and no one expected such a situation to occur. Is Master also here? Xiao Sou asked aloud. Jun Hong Chung pointed to the back and said, "He is in the back courtyard. Go and pay him a visit." Xiao Sou nodded and immediately walked towards the back. As she learned more about the immortal domain, she wanted to know more about the new face of the immortal domain. The immortal domain Just this name alone was full of endless attraction. Although her master had not been to the real immortal domain, he had been to the immortal domain, so he could be considered a half-immortal. Maybe after this incident, she could learn more about the immortal domain from her master. When he saw Xiao So, he was not surprised at all, and his expression was gentle and calm. "So, you are here." "Greetings, master." Xiao So bowed respectfully. It seems that Ling Sun has not returned yet. Shu Yu's eyes swept over. Since only Xiao So came, it proved that there was no news about Jun Lingxuan. Xiao So nodded slightly. "I think he should be delayed by something, so he did not come back." Hearing this, Shu Yu looked at Xiao So meaningfully and said, "You're worried that he doesn't want to come back, right?" As soon as he said this, Xiao So's expression suddenly changed. After a quick flash of panic, she forced herself to calm down. There was a trace of guilt in her voice. "Master, what do you mean? It's impossible to reverse the process of possession." Shu Yu's expression was calm. After hearing the news from the cultivators who returned this time, he already knew the real situation. Since the Qing devil admitted that she had possessed his body, it proved that Jun Lingxuan had died long ago. It was impossible for her to take back the initiative. He had been to the crossing celestial region before. Unlike the cultivators in the upper realm, who rarely came into contact with possession, he was very familiar with it. When he first found out, he was very puzzled by Xiao So's reaction. After thinking about it carefully, he guessed the reason for her actions. Most importantly, at this moment, after seeing Xiao So's expression, he seemed to understand a little more. Xiao So looked flustered. Her eyes kept flickering, and her palms were quickly sweating. She unconsciously lowered her head, and her mind was rapidly searching for a way to deceive this point. Even if she made up this kind of thing flawlessly, it was still possible to deceive family head June and the others. However, if she wanted to deceive her master, it was indeed too difficult. Previously, she had thought of everything too simply and had completely forgotten about this point. Chapter 5998. Master, Xiao So said hurriedly but was interrupted by Shu Yu. "Say no more. I know what you're thinking." Xiao So's heart skipped a beat. Everything would be over once her master told others. All the plans they had thought of before would turn into bubbles, and there would be no more hope. "I won't interfere with the decision you've made. I won't say much about it either. Just think about it carefully." Xiao So, who was worrying about how to solve this big problem, was stunned after hearing Shu Yu's words. She subconsciously wondered if she had misheard. Did her master want to keep it a secret for her? "Master?" Shu Yu looked indifferent. "I know it's not easy for you. You just have to make your own plans. I won't get involved." After getting a positive answer, Xiao So breathed a sigh of relief and her heart settled down. "Thank you, Master. The reason why I mention this is to give you a few words of advice. People in the immortal realm are not simple. If you don't know Qing Devil's character, you have to be careful." Shu Yu looked at Xiao So with a complicated expression. For so many years, he had not accepted any disciples. He was quite satisfied with his two disciples, Xiao So and Jun Lingxuan. However, he did not expect that such a change would happen after he went to the ancient battlefield. Nowadays, he had become indifferent to many things. Everyone knew about the conflicts, and even intrigues between aristocratic families. Jun Lingxuan was no longer around. He just hoped that Xiao So could live well. "Master, don't worry." Xiao So was moved. "I've been in contact with Qing Devil for some time. I know his character. He has no evil intentions towards me. With Qing Devil's strength, it was not difficult for him to kill her. However, Qing Devil did not want to kill her. This was what she was most confident about." Noticing Xiao So's sparkling eyes, Shu Yu understood her thoughts. He didn't say anything more. Everyone had their own judgment. Bailey Hongzhuang's group stayed with the Bailey family for 7 days before leaving. During this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had a general understanding of what had happened in the Bailey family. Bailey Fan and the others seized this opportunity to ask many questions, and Bailey Hongzhuang answered them one by one. Whether it was Bailey Fan or the group of elders, they were all deeply impressed by Bailey Hongzhuang's ability. She was clearly so young, and she rarely interfered with the family's affairs. But when it came to solving it, she was so handy. No matter how complicated the problem was, she could always find the root of the problem and come up with a solution. Most of the time, his answers made everyone's eyes light up. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang was also very happy to guide the family's disciples in their cultivation. Of course, as long as someone asked for advice on alchemy or medicine, she would not be stingy. In just 7 days, the Bailey family's cultivators felt that they had gained a lot. This kind of harvest was something that they would have to spend a lot of time to achieve on a normal day. If possible, they really hoped that the family head could stay in the family for a while longer. Then all of them would be greatly improved. At the same time, they also understood that the family head was very busy and could not stay here all the time. Chapter 5999. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't urge the doctors from the Bailey family to return to the D family. They hadn't been back for a long time, so it was only right for them to stay a little longer. However, when they were about to leave, the doctors who still wanted to return to the D family to study also followed the group. Although they wanted to reunite with their families, everyone was working hard for the sake of their family. How could they slack off? Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a trace of satisfaction in her eyes. With such a firm heart, she believed that their future path would be even smoother. After thinking it over, Lan Yunxiao and the others decided not to stay in the Bailey family. They knew that if they stayed here, they wouldn't have to worry about anything. However, Hongzhuang spent most of her time in the D family. They also hoped to see more of Hongzhuang. Moreover, when they first went to the D family, they felt very uncomfortable. However, as time passed, they became more familiar with the D family and didn't feel too distant. Most importantly, they needed to increase their strength as soon as possible. Only by cultivating in the D family's cultivation room could they increase their strength faster. Even if no one urged them on a daily basis, that sense of urgency had never disappeared. Right now, they only felt that they were a burden and couldn't help at all. However, everyone's mentality was very calm. At least, they would do their best, and the gap between them would gradually shrink. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were naturally very happy with Lan Yunxiao and the others' decision. They had been looking forward to this result. Although it was very convenient to travel between the Bailey family and the D family, it wasn't as convenient as staying in the D family. After returning to the D family, Di Beichen also asked about the Jun family situation. It said that Jun Lingxuan hasn't returned to the Jun family yet. It seems that the nine-tailed Inferno Fox's judgment was right. The Qing Devil must still be in the ancient battlefield. Di Beichen's lips curled into a playful and devilish smile. His incomparably handsome face suddenly exuded endless charm. Just one look from him was enough to captivate a person's soul. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. This is good news for us. The Jun family hasn't given up yet. It's said that Xiao Shou has gone directly to the Jun family to wait. Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. I'm really curious about their expressions when they find out that Jun Lingxuan won't be coming back. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked at each other with a sly smile in their eyes. Inside the room, the woman was wearing a white dress and was lying lazily on the bench. Her long dress flowed elegantly, and her hair was also wantonly scattered. Against her fair and sparkling skin, it was like a picture scroll. Bailey Hongzhuang had one hand behind her head, and the other hand was holding a scroll, casually reading it. The faint, warm sun shone on her body, adding a trace of gentleness and warmth. When Di Beichen walked into the room and saw this scene, his heart seemed to melt for a moment. He slowly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and reached out to pick her up, letting her lean on his legs. Looking down at that perfect and exquisite face, his eyes were full of gentleness. "Wife, what are you looking at?" Bailey Hongzhuang found a comfortable position in Di Beichen's arms and narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. That gentle and lazy appearance was like a cat, exuding endless charm. Chapter 6000. Di Beichen took the scroll and raised his eyebrows slightly. This is what the Qing Devil was talking about. Yes. He carefully examined the scroll in his hand. This scroll looked very old, as if it had been worn down by endless time. It had a heavy feeling of history. The material of the scroll was also very special. It was very comfortable to touch, as soft and smooth as warm jade. Looking at the scroll, she felt that it would disappear if she touched it casually. However, after touching it, she realized that it was not as fragile as it looked. Since the Qing devil cares so much about this scroll, it must be something extraordinary. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She looked up at the handsome face and suddenly felt that Beichun was really good-looking. No matter how she looked at him, he was so good-looking that she blushed and her heart beat faster. Even though she had been with Beichun for so long, she never got tired of looking at him. On the contrary, the feeling of being attracted to him had never disappeared. I have been busy since I came back, so I didn't have time to look at this carefully. Since I have time today, I want to see what it is. Did you find anything? Di Beichun touched Bailey Hongzhuang's soft hair gently, as if he was touching a rare treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. There is a layer of restriction on it. I have tried many ways, but I can't see the content clearly. She was sure that this scroll must come from the immortal area. Although she didn't know what the Qing devil's level was in the immortal area, it should be more extraordinary than the things in the upper world. Di Beichun also noticed that there were many words on the scroll, but he couldn't see them clearly. This situation was not strange. There must be a special way to open such a mysterious scroll. Don't worry, we will figure out eventually. Di Beichun smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She didn't care too much about this scroll. The main reason why she kept it was to prevent the Qing devil from getting what he wanted. As for the way to open it, maybe they would know it when they arrived at the immortal area. Has Yunjue finished his closed-door training? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Since they came back, all the cultivators had been resting. The trip to the ancient battlefield was really tiring. Moreover, everyone's cultivation had improved a lot. It was normal for them to relax for a while. Ziren and Shangguan Yingying went to the Emperor Cloud City a few days ago, saying that they wanted to eat all the good things that they hadn't eaten for a while. When they heard, and they hadn't come back. Only Mo Yunjue went into seclusion after he came back. Everyone admired him for his hard work. Not yet, but it should be soon. Di Beichun smiled faintly. When he breaks through, he will come out. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. When they came back, they heard Yunjue say that he was very close to breaking through, so they wanted to break through in one go. When Yunjue breaks through and Ziren and Shangguan Yingying come back, let's go to the abandoned immortal forest. We haven't been back since the last time we left. I wonder how Granny Hua and the others are doing. Zhongli Mu's strength should be more terrifying. Chapter 6001. I think it's boring for you to stay at home. Why don't we go to the Emperor Cloud City to find Ziren and the others? Di Beichun smiled. Granny Hua and the others love snacks the most. We can also buy some. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately sat up straight and nodded with a sweet smile. Okay, then let's go now. Emperor Cloud City. As the city closest to the D family, it was inextricably linked to the D family. Emperor Cloud City was extremely lively on weekdays, and now with the D family's reputation becoming more and more famous, more and more people came to the Emperor Cloud City. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, they were surprised to find that the Emperor Cloud City was even more lively than before. People were coming and going, and it was full of laughter. Let's go see Huang Futing first. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Di Beichun naturally took Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked forward. Since he told his father about his plan, his father had sent people to start building the Dark Sacred Assembly not far from the Emperor Cloud City. Huang Futing and the others were now his followers. Naturally, he couldn't let them stay in the ruined temple like before. At the very least, they should have a more comfortable residence. Although this didn't seem like much, it was a completely different feeling. He hoped that everyone would no longer feel homeless. On the contrary, they would feel more at home. Looking at the huge black building in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with shock and surprise. This building was extremely wide and round, exuding a heavy and mysterious aura. It was surrounded by mountains and forests. Although it was outside, it wasn't far from the Emperor Cloud City. On the contrary, this location gave off a sense of leisure. The whole building was majestic and spectacular. Dugu's work was also very impressive. Just from every detail, one could see that it took a lot of effort to build the headquarters of the Dark Sacred Assembly. At present, the Dark Sacred Assembly had not been officially established yet, so there was no sign hanging here. After all, before Beichun prepared everything, if this news was spread, it was inevitable that someone would come to cause trouble. This was not something they wanted to see. Beichun also looked at the building in shock, and his heart was filled with emotions. Before he left the family, he had only told his father about his thoughts. In fact, he had planned to prepare everything himself, but he didn't expect that he would suddenly have to go out and train, so he could only leave everything to his father. However, he did not expect his father to complete everything so well. It was almost the same as what he had planned. Wife, from now on, this will be the headquarters of the Dark Sacred Assembly. Beichun turned to look at her. His deep eyes were as dazzling as the stars. Bailey Hongzhuang saw a firm conviction in his eyes. This will definitely be the most sensational event in the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. As her vision gradually broadened, her confidence in this matter became even stronger. In Beichun's mind, he couldn't help but think of the scene when his master had talked to him about this matter. He had promised to give the dark attribute cultivators more space to live, to let them live a dignified life, and not be looked at with strange eyes by others. Now, this plan had begun. In the near future, he believed that this matter would be completed. Chapter 6002. Huang Futing and the rest walked out after noticing that there were people outside. Ever since they came here, their hearts had been filled with gratitude. When they first sought help from Beichun, everyone only thought that they had to work hard for Beichun. However, during this period of time, they had not done anything for Beichun at all. On the contrary, it was the other party who had been contributing. Whether it was the cultivation resources, the current residents, or the various care in the ancient battlefield, it was all Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang who helped them. On the contrary, they did not contribute anything. Now, they no longer had many concerns like before. They only had one thought, and that was to work hard for the young master willingly. No matter what the young master asked them to do, they would go through fire and water without hesitation. When everyone walked outside and saw the two familiar figures, smiles appeared on their faces. "Young master, madam." Huang Futing hurried over. Everyone had thought about how to address Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. In the end, they followed the way the D family addressed them. To them, Beichun was not only their president in the future, but also their leader. Seeing the familiar faces, Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichun were also delighted. "You're all here." After the young master told us the news, we came over immediately. Huang Futing smiled faintly. "Thank you, young master and madam." Everyone bowed together. Perhaps in the eyes of others, having a stable residence was nothing. However, for people like them who did not have a fixed residence, this feeling was too long since they had such a feeling. They had not felt at ease for a long time. Many of the thoughts in their hearts could not be expressed in words. The only thing they could say was the word "thank you." In the future, this will be the headquarters of the Sacred Assembly. What do you all think? Beichun slowly walked into the Sacred Assembly. He realized that it was extremely spacious inside, and the layout and design were very considerate. Obviously, his father must have found a skilled craftsman to specially design it. "Young master, this place is really great." "Yes, not only is it spacious, but the design is also very good. I've been to the headquarters of other guilds before, and our place is much better than theirs." Excitement appeared on everyone's faces at the same time. Even now, they were still immersed in such joy, looking forward to the day when the Dark Sacred Assembly was established. Beichun nodded slightly and said, "During this period of time, all of you can cultivate here in peace. Once we're done with the preparations, we can announce this news." As soon as he said that, everyone's breathing quickened. After waiting for so long, this day had finally arrived. "When the time comes, I will inform you. Everyone, prepare yourselves." Beichun's eyes were bright and dazzling like diamonds. "Huangfu, it's time for our brothers to come back." I hope that everyone will be here on the day the sacred assembly is established. I understand. Huang Futing nodded, and he couldn't conceal the excitement on his face. Suddenly, Di Beichen seemed to have thought of something and said, "Before that, you have to do something first. Young master, feel free to tell me. I will definitely settle this matter properly." Chapter 6003. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Huang Futing's body trembled, and his expression froze for a moment, but his eyes gradually turned red. "Young master," Di Beichen smiled faintly, We already know about your matter. She has been waiting for you for so long. It's time to go and pick her up." Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at Huang Futing with a smile. From a conversation in the ancient battlefield, they already understood that the woman had sacrificed too much for Huang Futing. Now that the Dark Sacred Assembly was about to be established, Dark Attribute cultivators would no longer have to live in hiding like before. Only by bringing her over would Huang Futing be truly happy. Huang Futing suppressed the feeling of tears in his eyes. In fact, this had always been a part of his heart that he did not have the courage to touch. Ever since he learned about her recent situation, he could not help but think of her whenever he was alone. On the day the Dark Sacred Assembly was established, he also wanted her to see it with her own eyes. "Thank you, young master." Huang Futing's expression was serious, and his voice was mixed with more emotions than usual. At the same time, the other cultivators present also revealed joyful smiles. "Brother Huang Fu, you can do it. We're all waiting for sister-in-law to come back." Before they found the young master, Huang Futing was their leader. If Huang Futing had not gathered them together, their lives would have been even more difficult. More importantly, Huang Futing led all of them to find the young master, which was why they had their current lives. Usually, everyone could feel that he would be depressed sometimes. Originally, everyone only thought that it was because of the family, but now it seemed that he had always been thinking about someone. Looking at the familiar and amiable faces around him, the smile on Huang Futing's face became more and more brilliant. Then, he nodded heavily, and his smile was free and easy. "Don't worry, I'll definitely bring her back." Everyone cheered, and at this moment, everyone felt happy from the bottom of their hearts. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang looked around the Dark Sacred Assembly, and the more they looked, the more satisfied they were. As the head of an aristocratic family, Di Yujue was very familiar with these things. Everything was designed in an orderly manner, and no one could find any problems with it. After the two of them left the Dark Sacred Assembly's headquarters, they continued to search for Ziren and Shangguan Yingying. With Ziren and Yingying's gluttonous nature, they should be in some restaurant at this time, right? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the bustling streets. It was already noon, and the sun had become scorching hot. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Xiaohei and Xiao Bai are also following them. We just have to follow their auras. The two of them walked forward, and it didn't take long for them to sense Xiaohei and Xiao Bai's auras. After taking a closer look, wasn't the restaurant in front of them? When Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying arrived, they found that Ziren and Shangguan Yingying had ordered a table of good wine and dishes. Opposite them were Xiaohei and Xiao Bai, and the two people and two beasts' faces were filled with excitement. "I guess that you must be having a meal." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and quickly walked forward. "Hongzhuang," Shangguan Yingying was overjoyed. "Why are you here? Come and sit down. The taste of this restaurant's food is really amazing." "Master," Xiaohei turned into a white light and directly pounced into Bailey Hongzhuang's arms, excitedly rubbing against her body. "Master, I missed you so much." Chapter 6004. With Master here, I'm so happy that I forget about home. Xiaohei leaned into Bailey Hongzhuang's arms, her little face full of seriousness. TSK. Shangguan Yingying poked Xiaohei with her chopsticks. Who was it that said that if she could eat so happily every day, she would rather stay here forever? Xiaohei turned her head and glared angrily at Shangguan Yingying, who had exposed her, then looked innocently at Bailey Hongzhuang. "I don't know who Yingying is talking about." "Ha ha." Shangguan Yingying laughed. She liked Xiaohei's playful look. Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed Xiaohei's head. Come on, do you think I don't know your personality? You can't walk when you see good food. If you really missed me, you would have come looking for me after playing outside for so many days. Xiao Hei smiled embarrassedly. I actually guessed that master would come looking for me today, so I waited here obediently. Wouldn't it be terrible if I went the wrong way? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be bothered to listen to this little girl's nonsense. After sitting down with Xiao Hei in her arms, she noticed that Bali Yin Che and Linger weren't here. At the same time, Di Beichen's voice rang out. Where did Yin Che and Linger go? As soon as he said this, when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying looked at each other, and their expressions became very interesting. Speaking of this matter, it's a bit complicated. What happened? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, a little puzzled. Logically speaking, it should be impossible for anything dangerous to happen in Emperor Yin City. What's more, if there really was danger, Xiren and Shangwaning wouldn't be eating so leisurely. Yin Che really is good luck with women. Xiren raised his eyebrows, his cultured and refined face filled with a gossipy expression. Shangwan Ying continued. You also know how lethal Yin Che's looks are. When we were walking with Yin Che earlier, all the unmarried girls on the road were secretly throwing flirtatious glances at him. Even married ladies couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. Along the way, as long as it was a female, their eyes were filled with love. That scene, you guys didn't see it. It was simply a miracle. Xiren shook his head and sighed. Even now, when he thought about it, he was still amazed. Is it that exaggerated? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and subconsciously looked at Di Beichen. Yin Che's handsomeness was obvious to all. Not to mention Di Yin City. Even in the Di family, there were many girls who admired him. They were already accustomed to this matter. But Yingying and Shangwan Ying were exaggerating a little. Beichen's looks were not inferior to Yin Che's. Although there were many people paying attention to them along the way, it wasn't that shocking. You don't need to look at Beichen. Xiren put down his chopsticks and said, You two are a well-known couple, especially in Emperor Yin City. Who doesn't know how much you love each other? A married man and an unmarried man have different lethality. Shangwan Yingying nodded in agreement. What's more, you're the holy maiden of the light. Who would dare steal your man? Wouldn't that be courting death? Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. Now that I think about it, what you said makes sense. Of course. Shangwan Yingying looked proud. What does this have to do with Yin Che not being here? Chapter 6005. Haha, that's the most important point. Xiren chuckled. You know how frightening Yin Che is, so it's inevitable that girls would throw themselves at him. It's not like what you're saying. Shangwan Yingying glanced sideways at Xiren, a hint of disdain in her expression. Then she said seriously, Actually, this is a story of a hero saving a damsel in distress. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying finally understood what was going on after when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying's narration. It turned out that on their way to the restaurant, Yin Che saw a girl being bullied by a thug, so he stepped in to save her. That girl was quite pitiful. Her stepmother had sold her to a thug, so Bailey Yin Che took out some money and gave it to the thug, writing off the matter once and for all. Bailey Yin Che thought that the matter was over, but just as he was about to leave, that girl proposed to follow Bailey Yin Che. In my opinion, that girl must be in love with Yin Che. Shangwan Yingying smiled faintly. If it were me, and I was in such a difficult situation, and a handsome and rich man saved me, I would definitely be willing to give myself to him. Xiren raised his eyebrows and asked with narrowed eyes, Then why didn't you give yourself to me when I saved you before? Haven't I already given myself to you? Shangwan Yingying chuckled. Besides, it's not like I don't have anywhere to go given my situation. Yin Che didn't agree, did he? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Yin Che had been with her since he was young. As a beast king, there were many times when he was cold, but he still had a kind heart. Saving someone was completely within her expectations. If she and Beichen were in the same situation, they would have also stepped in to save them. But that girl wanted to follow them, so this matter was a little complicated. As expected of brother and sister, you even guessed Yin Che's reaction. Shangwan Yingying gave her a thumbs up. Yin Che didn't do anything, but that girl's foothold has become a problem. Think about it. If her stepmother can betray her once, she can betray her a second time. She can't be lucky enough to be saved every time, right? So, Yin Shay and Linger went to help her find a place to stay? Di Beichun asked with raised eyebrows. That seems to be the case. Zyra nodded. Speaking of which, the most interesting thing isn't this, but Ling Er's attitude. Haha, Shangguan Ying couldn't help but laugh. Isn't Ling Er usually very cold? But she's different today. How is it different? Bailey Hongzhuang also had a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Ling Er usually didn't care about many things. Usually, when she encountered such things, she would definitely not care about it. But if this matter involved Yin Shay, it might really be a little different. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's curious expression, Shangguan Yingying's smile became even brighter. Hongzhuang, you're starting to gossip too. Ha! Bailey Hongzhuang laughed softly. Don't keep us in suspense. Hurry up and tell us. You know how cold Linger usually is. She wouldn't care about this kind of thing, but when she saw that the girl insisted on following Yin Shay, she volunteered to help her find a place to stay. Don't you think that's very surprising? Linger volunteered. Chapter 6006. Don't doubt it. What you've heard is the truth. Shangguan Ying picked up a mouthful of food and put it in her mouth. She was so happy that she didn't hesitate to eat. Di Beichun and Wen Xiren ate together. They already knew what was going on, so they watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying chatter with interest. Hongzhuang, do you think Linger likes Yin Shay? Shangguan Ying asked, as she put food in Bailey Hongzhuang's bowl. Try it. It tastes good. I think we can bring some with us when we go to Granny Hua's place. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Granny Hua and the others loved delicious food. We haven't been back for so long. This time, we must bring more gifts. As their strength increased, they were even more grateful for the guidance Granny Hua and the others had given them. They had helped them for no reason, and they had no way to repay this kindness. The only thing they could do was make Granny Hua and the others happier. I have the same idea. Xiren and I have bought a lot of things these days. Shangguan Ying smiled. It seemed that they were all thinking the same thing. Ling Er and Yin Shay's relationship is indeed a bit unclear, but it's best if we don't get involved in this kind of thing. If one day they really do get together, we'll be happy to see it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled gently. She felt that things in this world were really interesting. Back in the Chaos Ring, before Yin Shay had taken human form, Ling Er often bullied Yin Shay and the others. Who would have thought that after Yin Shay took human form, the relationship between the two would take a huge turn? It was very interesting just thinking about it. I'm actually more curious about what kind of place Ling Er will find for this girl. Shangguan Ying's face was full of curiosity. If it were any other time, Ling Er would probably just throw this girl out, but it's not very likely that she will do so today. If she goes to another city, it might be possible, but if she stays in Emperor Cloud City, this girl's stepmother will find her sooner or later. That's right. That girl looks quite pitiful. Her tear-stained face makes one not have the heart to treat her cruelly. When Xiren also said, if we can find her a safe place to stay, that would be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This situation reminded her of herself in the beginning. When she was in the general's mansion, her life was also very miserable. Otherwise, the original Bailey Hongzhuang would not have died. Let's wait patiently. I believe that they will find a suitable solution. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If they couldn't find a suitable place in Emperor Cloud City, they could go to other cities. Just how big was the upper realm? As long as he didn't go back, there were plenty of places he could go. Shangguan Ying nodded slightly. I also think that this problem is very simple for them to solve. The four of them chatted as they ate. Perhaps it was because they had been too tense during their cultivation, but now that they could relax, everyone felt exceptionally happy. Of course, they also understood that this was just a short vacation. When Yunju came out of seclusion, they would go to the abandoned immortal forest to cultivate. After all, everything was pushing them forward now. They couldn't stop at all. And Master, Chapter 6007. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head and found that Bali Yin Shay and Ling Er had already arrived, and there was a strange figure beside them. The girl was very delicate and pretty, with soft facial features and a gentle temperament. At this moment, she was following behind by Li Yin-che, with a bit of panic and timidity on her face. Shang Waningying was still holding a piece of vegetable in her mouth. When she suddenly saw this scene, she couldn't help but open her mouth, and the vegetable fell back into the bowl. Ew, what's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also looked at the two strangely. This scene was different from what they had imagined. Linger still had a cold face, and compared to her usual indifference, it was undoubtedly colder at this moment. Bali Yin-che saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were also here, and he immediately breathed a sigh of relief, a smile on his face. Sister, brother-in-law, you're also here. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile of concern. You're hungry too, right? Do you want some more food? Bailey Yin-che nodded slightly, then turned around and said, let's sit down and talk. After sitting down, Bailey Yin-che said, Sister, I presume you already know the situation? Bailey Hongzhuang responded. But what's the problem? Do you need her help? This matter really needs brother-in-law's help. Hearing this, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, but his expression was extremely calm. What do you need me to do? Just tell me. I was originally going to help Miss Wanqing find a place to stay, but I also understood that if she stayed in Emperor Cloud City, it would be difficult for her to truly live a peaceful life. So I prepared to leave some money for her to travel out of the city. I didn't expect her to be a cultivator of the dark attribute. With this attribute, even if she went to other cities, I'm afraid her life wouldn't be easy. With a helpless expression on his handsome white face, Bailey Yin-che looked at Di Beichen and said, Brother-in-law, I think you can give Miss Wanqing a better place to go. What do you think? When Gu Wanqing heard that Bailey Yin-che was going to hand her over to Di Beichen, she was a little nervous. She lowered her head and didn't even dare to look at Di Beichen and the others. She didn't expect Bailey Yinche's brother-in-law to be young Master Di. He was the young master of the Di family. She simply couldn't believe that such a person with such a noble status was by her side right now. When Di Beichen heard that Gu Wanqing was of the dark attribute, he already understood Bailey Yin-che's idea. He looked at Gu Wanqing with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at Gu Wanqing. This name really matched this girl's image. However, the Dark Sacred Assembly was about to be established. If a dark attribute girl suddenly appeared at this time, they had to be cautious. Although Gu Yunqing didn't look like a thoughtful person, it was necessary to consider. They couldn't let any uncertain factors appear in this plan. Feeling Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's gazes, Gu Wanqing became even more flustered. Her fingers intertwined and her voice trembled as she said, No matter what you ask me to do, I will do my best to do it. I will never cause trouble for anyone. If I can be young Master Yin-che's maid, it will be my blessing. As soon as these words came out, everyone present looked at each other and felt a little amused. This girl was honest. She probably didn't want to do anything right now. She just wanted to stay by Bailey Yin-che's side. Chapter 6008. Since Miss Gu has already made up your mind, it won't be a problem to accommodate you since my Di family has a large business. Di Beichen's expression was calm as he spoke slowly. Following Di Beichen's words, everyone could clearly feel that the surrounding atmosphere seemed to have become colder. Ling still had her arms crossed in front of her chest and didn't say a word, as if everything around her had nothing to do with her. However, the more this was the case, the more everyone felt that it was strange. Bailey Yin-che looked at Di Beichen for help. He didn't understand why his brother-in-law had agreed just like that. Helpless, he could only ask Bailey Hongzhuang for help. He didn't have any thoughts about Gu Wanqing, but if he didn't help her to the end after saving her, it wouldn't solve her problem at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a smile, giving Bailey Yin-che a helpless look. Originally, she was worried that Gu Wanqing wanted to join the Dark Sacred Assembly for some purpose. Now, it seemed that the situation was clearly different from what she had imagined. This should be a very simple matter of a hero saving a beauty and a woman falling in love at first sight. Now that the Dark Sacred Assembly was about to be established, if this girl was really a simple and honest person, it wouldn't be a bad choice for her to stay in the Dark Sacred Assembly in the future. After all, there were more men in the Sacred Assembly and fewer women. Most of the time, Some miscellaneous and delicate matters were still handled by the women. However, before entering the dark sacred assembly, they needed to properly investigate. She believed that Beichin also had the same idea, but she would have to trouble Yin Che. When Xiren and Shanghuan Ying watched the show in front of them and secretly admired Beichin, Beichin was simply trying to stir up trouble. Bailey Yin Che felt even more helpless after seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't intend to help him. Just as he was about to clear things up with Gu Wanqing, he met a pair of eyes filled with tears. Sir Yin Che, I will do my best to serve you well and won't cause any trouble. If you don't like me, I don't mind if you arrange for me to do odd jobs. Gu Wanqing felt uneasy. She really did not have any way out now. As long as she did not marry someone she did not love, she did not care what kind of hard work she had to do. Besides, she liked Bailey Yin Che. Even if she could only see him from afar, that would be good enough. If she could do something for him, that would be the happiest thing in the world. Seeing Gu Wanqing like this, Bailey Yin Che couldn't bring himself to reject her. He could only say, I'm used to being alone. I don't need anyone to serve me. After you go to the D family, I will see what other jobs are suitable for you. If you find a better place to go in the future, just let me know. Gu Wanqing lowered her head and said, Thank you, young master. Bailey Yin Che breathed a sigh of relief. When he was eating, he looked at Di Beichan with resentment. His brother-in-law deliberately tricked him. However, even in the face of Bailey Yin Che and Ling Er's resentful gazes, Di Beichan still minded his own business and ate slowly. He was not affected in the slightest. After lunch, everyone strolled around Dian City for a while, mainly to buy some food and daily necessities. Only then did they return to the D family. The arrangement for Gu Wanqing was very simple. The entire D family was extremely large and would usually recruit servants. The service elder easily arranged a job for Gu Wanqing and arranged for her to be in a place not far from Bailey Yin Che's residence. Chapter 6009. Ling, you don't seem to be in a good mood today. After arranging Gu Wanqing's tasks, everyone headed back to their residence. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask when she saw that Ling hadn't said a word. Actually, she was very surprised by Ling Er's behavior today. In the past, she only thought that Yin Che had feelings for Ling Er, but Ling Er had never expressed her feelings. She also didn't see the slightest bit of concern in her expression. However, after this incident, everyone felt that something was wrong with Ling Er. Although she was Ling Er's master, she had always treated Ling Er as a good sister. If it weren't for Ling Er, she would have died long ago. Ling Er originally had a cold expression on her face, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, her expression froze for a moment. Then she said, It's nothing. I've always been like this. When Xiren secretly gave Bailey Yin Che a look that said, You're on your own. Although Ling Er had lived longer than them, it was obvious that demon beasts weren't as good at disguising themselves as humans. Even if she didn't deliberately show it, it was obvious from her current state that she was in a very bad mood. Once a girl like Ling got angry, it wouldn't be easy to appease her. Bailey Yin Che shook his head and sighed. Had he been tricked by his brother-in-law? After hearing Ling Er's words, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that she didn't intend to say her thoughts, so she didn't ask any further. When it came to matters of the heart, no one could say for sure except for the person involved. After Ling Er left, Xiren bumped Bailey Yin Che's shoulder and smiled. Brother, there's hope. I don't understand what you're saying. Bailey Yin Che raised his eyebrows and pretended not to understand. Xiren chuckled. I understand. These two fellows had always been enemies. Now that there was suddenly such a subtle change, it was normal for them to be unable to adapt for a while. I'll head back first, Bailey Yin Che said. At this moment, his feelings were very complicated. Gu Wanqing was not far from where he lived. This problem was more troublesome. He had been by his sister's side for so long and was surrounded by familiar people. After he transformed into his human form, he also had his own residence. Although Gu Wan didn't live with him, this feeling was a little strange. Beichin, what did you do to Yin Che today? Shanghuan Ying was a little puzzled. Although she was very happy to watch the show, today's action didn't seem to be in line with Beichin's character. Actually, from another perspective, I'm helping him. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Hearing this, Shangguan, Ying and the others looked at each other. All right, they admitted that Di Beichun was telling the truth. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly woke up and saw that Di Beichun had already brought her breakfast. You're awake. Di Beichun's smile was warm. Even the sunlight couldn't be compared to his smile. I guess that you'd be hungry when you woke up, so I prepared breakfast for you. It's all your favorite food. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the incomparably handsome man in front of her, but she felt as if she had married a fox. If it wasn't for him, how could she have slept until now? Umph. Bailey Hongzhuang pouted and snorted coldly. She raised her head arrogantly and didn't want to pay attention to Di Beichun at all. Di Beichun's smile became even more affectionate. He walked slowly to Bailey Hongzhuang. Wife, I'll think that you're acting coquettishly like this. Chapter 60:10. Bailey Hongzhuang stared wide-eyed at the handsome face in front of her. Di Beichun originally saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was too cute and wanted to stop with a light kiss. But after kissing her, he found that a light kiss was not enough and could not help but deepen the kiss. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly closed her eyes. Di Beichun's kiss was as domineering as ever, but it did not lose its gentleness. It carried his unique scent, making people intoxicated. But when that pair of hot hands took the opportunity to stick to her skin, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. Her hands were pressed against Di Beichun's chest, and she angrily glared at him. Could it be that this man was not tired? Last night had exhausted her to death. Even now, she had not recovered, and I'm hungry. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's begging appearance, Di Beichun chuckled. I'll help you bring it over. No need, I'll get up right away. Bailey Hongzhuang greedily hugged Di Beichun. Her exquisite and beautiful face was filled with a sweet and happy smile. This kind of life was really beautiful. Di Beichun nodded slightly. Okay. After tidying up her clothes and putting on her makeup, Bailey Hongzhuang sat at the table. Looking at the exquisite dishes on the table, they were all her favorites. I just heard that Yunju has come out of closed-door cultivation. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Really? Then we can go to the abandoned, immortal forest together today? Should be. Di Beichun smiled. He knew that his wife had always wanted to see Granny Hua. After all, among all of them, Granny Hua liked her the most. That's great. Bailey Hongzhuang took a bite of the bun. Her delicate and beautiful face was filled with happiness. Abandoned, immortal forest. In front of them was a lush forest. The air was mixed with the smell of green grass. The sunlight was dazzling, bringing with it a sense of warmth. Appearing here again, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest unconsciously revealed a happy smile. After parting for almost a year, they wondered how Zhongli Mu and the rest were doing. Walking forward, not long after, everyone saw the familiar house. They could faintly hear the sound of conversation coming from the courtyard. Everyone looked at each other and lightened their footsteps. They wanted to give Granny Hua and the rest a surprise. However, before they reached the door, Granny Hua's voice was heard. You little brats, you're finally back. You. Granny Hua. Granny Hua. Granny Hua's ears. They were so careful and they almost did not make any sound, but they still could not escape Granny Hua's ears. The 7 of them walked into the courtyard together and saw Granny Hua and Senior Yu drying medicinal herbs. At this moment, the 2 of them had already put down the medicinal herbs in their hands and were looking at them with smiles. Granny Hua, Senior. The 7 of them bowed. Their youthful faces were filled with joyful smiles. After leaving for so long, seeing that everything was the same as before, everyone felt especially at ease. You guys left for a long time. Mu often talks about you guys. Granny Hua looked at everyone with a smile. Her eyes were filled with love. Granny Hua, Senior, after not seeing you for so long, we all miss you. Chapter 60:11. Senior Yu, we've been looking forward to coming back as soon as possible to show our filial piety to you. Xiren's face was full of smiles. Look, we've brought many gifts to make amends this time. As he spoke, Xiren took out the things they had bought in the Emperor Cloud City 2 days ago. At first, Yu Hong still had an arrogant look on his face, but when he saw Xiren take out one gift after another, he could no longer maintain his cold image. He immediately beamed with joy. At least you have a conscience. Granny Hua couldn't help but smile when she saw this. These little fellows had clearly figured out their preferences, so they had prepared so many gifts. However, this also proved that these little fellows were indeed thinking about them and weren't lying. You've all improved quite a bit during this time. After carefully sensing the cultivation of Deep Beichin and the others, Yu Hong's expression changed a little. When he first saw these little fellows, he didn't think much of their strength. With such a cultivation at this age, they would be a burden even in the abandoned immortal forest, let alone in the immortal domain. However, after not seeing them for a while, Deep Beichin and the others had actually advanced to the heavenly moon realm. This is a leap of 3 realms. Even Mu Er's speed of improvement wasn't so astonishing. Granny Hua also sensed it when she heard this, and a hint of surprise flashed through her eyes. This kind of improvement must be due to a great opportunity. Otherwise, it would be impossible to achieve just by relying on one's own cultivation. At the same time, it was impossible for a cultivator to improve so much through ordinary opportunities. We went out to train this time. Fortunately, we had a great harvest. Di Beichun cupped his hands and replied. Granny Hua's expression became more serious. The upper realm actually has such an amazing place to train. You've only been gone for less than a year, and your cultivations have improved so much. The place we went to this time shouldn't belong to the upper realm, Di Beichun replied. Yu Hong frowned. Not from the upper realm? Then where is it? This time around, we went to battlefield. The people inside were all supreme experts. According to our judgment, they should be experts from the immortal realms in the past. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly introduced the situation of the ancient battlefield. In fact, she was very curious about the existence of the ancient battlefield. It was impossible for cultivators from the upper realm to know the origin of such a mysterious place. Even Shu Yu would not know about it. Therefore, the only people who could possibly know the origin of the ancient battlefield were Granny Hua and the others. Battlefield? Hearing this, Granny Hua and Yu Hong couldn't help but look at each other. Their originally calm faces suddenly became complicated. It's just a battlefield. Your cultivation shouldn't have improved so much, Granny Hua said slowly. Then what's inside the battlefield? Did you see 2 statues? Yu Hong suddenly asked. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, not intending to hide anything. We saw 2 statues there, one of light and one of darkness. The rumor is actually true, Granny Hua muttered and looked into the distance. Her expression was somewhat weathered, as if she was recalling something from a long time ago. Looking at the 2 of them, everyone understood that Granny Hua and Senior Yu indeed knew about the ancient battlefield. Chapter 60:12. Yu Hong nodded slightly. This is an ancient battlefield. It is indeed from the immortal domain. Then why did it appear in the upper realm? Bali Yanche looked puzzled. The immortal domain and the upper realm were 2 different planes. Even the most ordinary cultivator in the immortal domain would be a dangerous existence in the upper realm. Now that the entrance to the immortal domain's ancient battlefield had appeared in the upper realm, it was fortunate that there was not much danger inside. If there were surviving cultivators inside, wouldn't it bring a huge disaster to the upper realm? This matter has a long history. Yu Hong sank into his memories. The ancient battlefield itself is actually a battlefield. Even in the immortal domain, there are many forces. Where there are people, there will be conflicts. Grudges and conflicts are unavoidable. Because of the frequent battles, which had a great impact, there was a small world like this that was specially used for battles. We don't know how long this ancient battlefield has existed. Anyway, it has existed for a long time. According to the ancient records, there were miracles in the ancient battlefield. They were referring to the light and darkness god statues. This news has been guiding many cultivators to go there for the sake of seeing the 2 god statues. It is said that the 2 god statues possess great power. Any cultivator who is baptized by the god statues will have a great opportunity. Their cultivation speed will be much faster than ordinary cultivators. However, as time passed, many cultivators voluntarily entered the ancient battlefield when the major forces were fighting. However, after so many years, the god statues have never appeared. As time passed, everyone felt that the news was fake. Therefore, no one went to the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was gradually abandoned by the immortal domain. Granny Hua also said, although I don't know why the entrance to the ancient battlefield appeared in the upper realm, since you're able to see the two god statues, it proves that your luck is really good. If those fellows in the immortal domain know that the god statues really exist, they will probably be furious. Yu Hong chuckled. If this news spreads, I'm afraid that many people will fight to enter the ancient battlefield. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood after hearing all this. Although they had never been to the immortal domain, they could feel that the immortal domain was an extremely huge and terrifying place from the two seniors' introduction. Even if it was a battle, there was a special place for it. This matter seemed a little shocking, but if one thought about it carefully, it was indeed a very good method. In this way, the war would not affect the buildings of the immortal realm. Come, tell us, what's so special about those two idols? Granny Hua revealed a rare look of curiosity. Even they had not personally been to the ancient battlefield. As for the two divine statues, it was written in the ancient books that they were miraculous and had endless uses. There were even rumors that as long as the cultivators who had been there were able to comprehend the contents inside, they would be destined to stand above everyone else. It was precisely because of this that there were always people who wanted to go to the ancient battlefield to search for opportunities. In fact, for such a long time, even they felt that the records in the ancient books were lies, but they didn't expect that everything was true. It was just that they didn't know it. Chapter 60:13. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others said that they could improve their cultivation talent in the Divine Palace, Granny Hua and Yu Hong were completely shocked. Improving one's talent was the most difficult thing to do, no matter where it was. Even in the immortal realm, it was difficult to improve one's talent. However, the Divine Palace actually had a way to improve one's talent. That was too amazing. When Huashu Kong arrived, he saw Granny Hua and the others sitting in a circle in the courtyard. He immediately smiled and said, "You guys are back. No wonder it's so lively." Senior Hua, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others bowed. The seniors treated them very well, so they respected them from the bottom of their hearts. "Why do you look like that?" Huashu Kong nodded at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, then looked at Yu Hong and Granny Hua in confusion. Their expressions were too strange. "Old man, sit down first." Yu Hong patted the chair next to him and said, "You guys brought us some shocking news today." "Oh." Huashu Kong was instantly interested. "What news? Tell me about it. Do you remember the two god statues on the ancient battlefield?" Granny Hua raised her eyebrows and smiled. Huashu Kong, who was originally casual, changed his expression after hearing this. He said in surprise, "How do they know about the god statues on the ancient battlefield?" "The ancient battlefield has been abandoned for many years. I don't know why the entrance was in the upper realm. When they entered the ancient battlefield this time, they happened to see the two god statues." Huashu Kong's expression changed slightly. "So you're going to enter the Divine Palace?" Everyone nodded. Huashu Kong was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "It seems that you guys are really lucky. Senior, have you heard of a person called Qing Devil?" Debachin thought for a while and asked. Although they were almost certain that Qing Devil was still in the ancient battlefield, he had a physical body now. He might come out of the ancient battlefield at any time. If Qing Devil was a powerful figure in the past, someone should have heard of her. However, these seniors had been living in the abandoned immortal forest all their lives, so they might not know much about the people in the immortal region. "Qing Devil?" Granny Hua frowned. "I've never heard of it. Did you meet this person in the ancient battlefield?" Yu Hong asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "He's someone who's very good at illusions. We met him in the ancient battlefield, and he even took over someone's body. However, he didn't seem to have returned to the upper realm this time. That's for sure. His soul still belongs to the celestial realm. It's impossible for him to appear in the upper realm. Only if this exit is in the immortal domain would he be able to come out." Yu Hong said slowly. "However, the ancient battlefield has been abandoned for so long, yet his soul is still intact. This guy is quite capable. Qing Devil is good at illusions. Huishukong pondered. This name sounds familiar. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes focused on Huishukong. Even though Qing Devil stayed in the ancient battlefield, everyone still felt uneasy. After all, he was still alive. After a while, Huishukong showed a look of realization. I remember now. This guy used to be from the immortal region. Chapter 60:14. Qing Devil. Just like his name, he's very demonic. I don't know much about him. I've only heard of his reputation. This person was very good at illusions. His illusions could be said to be at the peak of perfection. Even cultivators who were stronger than him would often be immersed in his illusions and be unable to extricate themselves. That's why no one wants to have too much to do with him. He's very ruthless. Although he didn't stay in the immortal realm for long, he made a name for himself. Later, I didn't hear any news about him. I thought he went somewhere else, but I didn't expect him to be in the ancient battlefield. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally understood. It seemed that Qing Devil's strength was not to be underestimated. Although they hadn't been to the immortal realm, Granny Hua and the others were extremely terrifying in their eyes. Even so, they had been living in the abandoned immortal forest. It showed how terrifying the cultivators in the immortal realm were. Since Qing Devil was able to make a name for himself in the immortal realm, his strength must be extraordinary. I hope this guy stays in the ancient battlefield. It'll be really troublesome if he comes out. Xiren couldn't help but sigh. If this guy hadn't just possessed Jun Lingxuan's body, they wouldn't have been able to defeat him. Most importantly, no matter if it was his cultivation method or not, this guy was probably much better than them. If they saw this guy again, his strength must be very terrifying. Everyone nodded. If possible, they really didn't want to see Qing Devil again. Don't worry about that now. He's been trapped in the ancient battlefield for so many years. As long as the ancient battlefield is abandoned, he probably won't have a chance to come out, Di Beichun said slowly. Everyone was relieved. Even if Qing Devil really appeared, he could only appear in the immortal realm. With their current situation, it was impossible for them to meet him. Instantly, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Is Zhongli Mu cultivating outside? Bailey Hongzhuang looked outside. She hadn't seen Zhongli Mu until now. They missed him a little because he hadn't come back for such a long time. He went out to cultivate early in the morning, as usual. You guys haven't been here for a while, so he's been talking about you guys. I'm sure he'll be very happy to see you when he comes back later. Just as they were talking, Senior Zhongli walked over slowly with Zhongli Mu. Upon seeing Di Beichun and the others, Zhongli Mu's face immediately lit up with joy. Brother Di, you're back. Zhongli Mu, long time no see. Everyone smiled. Zhongli Mu walked over quickly. I thought that you would only be gone for a few days, but I didn't expect you to not return after such a long time. I thought that I would never see you again. We went out to train earlier and came looking for you as soon as we came back. Everyone was overjoyed. Although they had not known Zhongli Mu for long, they had always treated him as their younger brother. It was really hard not to like this young man who was astonishingly strong, but also very simple. It's great that you're back. Zhongli Mu's smile was simple and honest. In the past, when you guys didn't come, I didn't feel bored. But after you guys left, I felt that being alone was too boring. This time, you won't be leaving for the time being, right? Chapter 60:15. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest's answer, Zhongli Mu was relieved. He had been hoping that everyone would come back soon. Otherwise, it would be too boring for him to be alone. Zhongli Shaoran looked at Zhongli Mu's happy face, and his gaze softened. Zhongli Mu had been with this group of old people since he was young, so he was bored. As a grandfather, he could clearly feel that Mu had become happier after getting to know Di Beichun and the rest. Now, he was sure that these little fellows were good people and had no other motives. If they could go to the immortal domain with Mu, that would be great too. Oh right, Senior, do you recognize this? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a book and handed it to Granny Hua. The content written on it was what they had copied in the Light Palace. However, they did not recognize the meaning of these words. After returning to the Di family, they had asked their grandfather, but he did not recognize these words either. He had flipped through some ancient books, but there was no introduction to these words. Therefore, if they wanted to know the content of these words, this was the only way. If Granny Hua and the rest did not know, they could only think of a way after going to the immortal domain. Granny Hua took the book. When she saw the words written on it, a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. These are ancient words. Once she said this, Yu Hong and the rest became more serious. The ancient words have been around for many years. It was impossible to see them in ordinary places. Old Man Hua, take a look. Granny Hua handed the book to Hua Shukong. Hua Shukong flipped through 2 pages and nodded. That's right, these are ancient words. Where did you get this? Yu Hong asked. Bailey Hongzhuang answered honestly. This is what we saw on the wall of the Light Palace. I felt that the content was very profound and might be useful in the future, so I copied it down. It's a pity that we don't recognize these words. Therefore, I would like to ask you seniors if you recognize them. We don't recognize these ancient words either. Granny Hua shook her head. We only know that these are ancient words of the immortal domain. However, it was too long ago. Just like the ancient battlefield, we can't trace its origin. That's right. Hua Shukong was helpless. The things recorded in the Light Palace should be very precious. It's a pity that too long ago, even in the immortal domain, no one would recognize them. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun looked at each other. It seemed that Qing Devil did not lie to them on this point. It was as if a huge treasure had appeared in front of you, but you did not have the key. It was really frustrating. Not to mention Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Even Yu Hong and the others couldn't help but sigh as they looked at the book. But Xian. Chapter 60:16. At this moment, Zhongli Xiao suddenly took the book. After carefully reading the contents, a trace of contemplation appeared on his face. Seeing this, Yu Hong raised his eyebrows. Old man Zhongli, could it be that you recognize these words? As soon as these words were spoken, the gazes of everyone descended onto Zhongli Xiao. If he knew the contents of these words, then they might really have opened a treasure trove. Facing everyone's expectant gazes, Zhongli Xiao slowly shook his head. I don't. Then why are you pretending to be so deep? Yu Hong rolled his eyes. To think that he was so expectant. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also very helpless. What they hoped for the most now was to meet someone who could recognize these words. But I have a friend who might recognize these words. Zhongli Xiao's voice rang out again. Everyone was slightly stunned. Then, their eyes flashed with a strong sense of hope. Really? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be surprised. He has always been good at these things. Zhongli Xiao's voice had a hint of certainty. However, he is in the immortal region. Hua Shukong sighed. He was not surprised. As long as someone recognizes him, even if he is in the immortal region, there will be a chance in the future. Towards the end, perhaps Hua Shukong's words were directed at Di Beichun and the others. Granny Hua nodded slightly, with a kind smile on her face. Although the people living in the abandoned immortal forest have always been looked down upon by the people in the immortal region, you juniors are still young. In the future, you will definitely have a chance to go to the immortal region. How can us old fellows allow the younger generation to stay in the forsaken immortal forest like us? Then, will I also have to go to the immortal region in the future? Zhongli Mu suddenly asked. Zhongli Xiao smiled at Zhongli Mu. He reached out and patted the latter's head. Didn't you always think that it is boring to stay in the abandoned immortal forest with us old guys? Once you have learned enough, you can go to the immortal region. At that time, we will not stop you. Hearing this, Zhongli Mu's expression became complicated. Grandpa, I'm not unwilling to stay here. Zhongli Xiao had a warm smile on his face, completely different from his usual stern self. Only when he was facing Zhongli Mu would he reveal such a loving expression. Even if you want to stay here, we won't agree. You're still so young. Why don't you go out and explore the world? We old guys have already seen everything. That's why we stayed in the abandoned immortal forest. Granny Hua laughed lightly and said, Your grandfather already had this plan. That's why he's been so harsh on you all these years. You have to understand his good intentions. Otherwise, this old fellow only has you as his grandson. If you're not strong enough, he won't feel at ease letting you go out. Yu Hong and the others nodded in agreement. Zhongli was the least talkative among them. but they were well aware of his feelings for Mu-Er. Old man Zhongli, you don't have to worry at all. Mu-Er is so outstanding, and he has inherited our legacy. It would be strange if he was bullied by those young fellows outside. When Huo Kong spoke, his face was full of confidence and pride. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed this, she was a little surprised. Chapter 60:17. Initially, she thought that the cultivators of the immortal domain must be extremely terrifying, unimaginable existences if they could only stay in the forsaken immortal forest despite being so powerful. However, after hearing what Senior Hui said, she suddenly felt that things were different from what she thought. Perhaps Senior Zhongli and the rest were experts who were tired of life in the immortal domain, which is why they stayed in the forsaken immortal forest. This situation was not impossible. That was what Senior Hui meant. As for whether that was the case, they would have to wait until they went to the immortal domain to find out. Don't worry. When you are strong enough to go to the immortal domain, I will write a letter for you to bring. As long as my old friend sees my letter, he will definitely help you. Zhongli Xiaoran's expression was calm, and his words were filled with confidence. It was obvious that his old friend had a very good relationship with him. Thank you, Senior. Di Beichen cupped his fists in thanks. This was extremely good news for them. After talking about the recent situation, the atmosphere was completely relaxed. Quick, look at the gifts these little fellas brought us. Granny Hua smiled as she waved her hand. While you were away, our food standards have dropped quite a bit. That's the truth. Yu Hong's face was serious. This feeling is the same as Mu-Er. When you weren't around, we ate like this. However, ever since you came, eating the same food as before, the feeling is really... Yu Hong shook his head helplessly, clearly disgusted. Zhongli Mu looked at Yu Hong, who did not give him any face, and could not help but ask, Senior Yu, is my food really that bad? No one asked him to eat it. Zhongli Xiaoran said. Yu Hong smiled embarrassedly. Mu-Er, I'm not saying that your food is bad. I just feel that Hong Zhuang's culinary skills are better. That's true. Zhongli Mu nodded honestly. Actually, I also feel that Hong Zhuang's food is the best. If there's a chance, I would like to learn from Hong Zhuang. No need. Zhongli Xiaoran sat down proudly. Don't tell me you specialize in cooking for everyone. That's all you've done. He doesn't care if he eats it or not. It's best if he starves to death. Zhongli Xiaoran had always been very protective of Zhongli Mu, and in such a situation, he displayed it vividly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, and a smile appeared on their lips. Senior Yu was actually very kind-hearted. It was just that his mouth was guarded, and it was very easy for him to offend people. Normally, it would be fine. However, when facing Senior Zhongli, the latter would not be courteous in the slightest. However, it was clear that everyone had always gotten along with each other like this. From Yu Hong's face that did not have the slightest bit of anger, one could tell that he was already used to Zhongli Xiaoran's insults. After dinner, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to their normal lives and followed Zhongli Mu to cultivate. When everyone stood in front of the waterfall again, they all had joyful smiles on their faces. In the past, I only felt that this river was too scary. However, after not coming back for so long, I really do miss it. When Xiren could not help but say as he jumped into the river, causing a splash. Seeing Xiren's action, Mo Yunjiwe and the other two looked at each other and jumped into the river together. Chapter 60:18. With the current weather, jumping into the river would be the coolest. Bailey Hongzhuang, Shangguan Ying, and Linger looked at each other, a playful smile appearing on their faces. In the next moment, the three of them also jumped into the river without hesitation. They were using this method to announce that they were back. Zhongli Mu looked at everyone, and the smile on his face became even brighter. The feeling of cultivating with everyone like this was really good. I'm coming too. Zhongli Mu laughed and immediately rushed into the river. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Xiao Xuanzi were not to be outdone. How could they not participate in this kind of situation? After a round of laughter, everyone returned to normal. Now that your strength has increased greatly, I'm sure that the speed of learning this move will be much faster. I hope that you will be able to learn it soon. Zhongli Mu's face was filled with a simple smile, Don't think that this move is simple, but it's very useful when used. Hearing this, Bei-chun nodded slightly. He had the most profound understanding of this point. When he had displayed that move, in fact, it had not been completely successful, but it had already had such power. If he cultivated it for a while, the effect would be even better. Everyone had seen Bei-chun use this move before, so they were very familiar with its effects. They also understood that the senior guiding them to learn this move was really for their own good. Zhongli, don't worry, we will definitely work hard. All right, how's your practice of that move? Bei-chun asked with a faint smile. In the past year, everyone's strength had improved greatly. Zhongli had always been an extremely abnormal existence in terms of cultivation. Through this period of cultivation, he might have already mastered this move. I've already mastered it. Zhongli touched his head. A simple and clear smile was reflected on his young and tender face, imprinted in everyone's heart. Facing such a cute young man, everyone only felt happy. It's really your style. Xiren was not surprised. If we didn't have the opportunity this time, I'm afraid that we would be left far behind by you again. Zhongli, since you've already mastered it, why don't you show us? It was rare for Mo Yunjue to speak. When he first saw Zhongli practicing this move, he was very surprised. Although he hadn't mastered it at that time, being able to walk to the center was already a terrifying ability. Now that he had succeeded, the scene would definitely be spectacular. Everyone nodded and looked at Zhongli expectantly. They were also very curious about the effect. Then I'll show you. Zhongli agreed without hesitation. His figure flashed as he charged towards the magnificent waterfall under everyone's gaze. He saw a figure rushing up from the bottom of the waterfall as fast as lightning. The turbulent water rushed down, and the rumbling sound was endless. Everyone saw that a path seemed to have been opened in the middle of the waterfall, and a young and vigorous figure rushed up the waterfall at lightning speed. Unlike the first time when he was washed down by the river halfway, this time he directly climbed to the top. Looking at the sturdy and proud figure, everyone's eyes were filled with admiration. Chapter 6019. This move looks really shocking after mastering it. Shangguan Ying stared blankly at the figure on top of the waterfall. Even though the figure was extremely small compared to the majestic waterfall, at this moment, no one could ignore his existence. Zhongli speed is truly abnormal. But thinking about how he usually looks when he cultivates, even I have to admit that this fellow is really handsome. Xiren's lips curled into a brilliant smile. When he saw someone of the same age who was stronger than him, he couldn't help but feel complicated. But when he saw this young man who was so terrifyingly strong, he didn't have any other emotions. He just felt happy for him from the bottom of his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' faces were filled with joy. Perhaps Zhongli had this kind of magic that made everyone happy for him. In the next moment, Zhongli suddenly jumped down from the top of the waterfall, allowing the water to wash over him. Not long after, he returned to their side. Zhongli, this move of yours is really powerful. It looks amazing. Shangguan Ying gave him a thumbs up. This fellow really made many people prostrate themselves in admiration. If Zhongli went to the upper realm, those arrogant fellows wouldn't have the face to continue being so arrogant. Zhongli smiled foolishly, but his eyes dimmed. I've been practicing this move for a while. Grandfather said that my speed is already too slow. Too slow. Hearing these two words, everyone blushed with shame. How hard was this move to practice? They thought about how they had spent so much time practicing this move and still hadn't succeeded. Zhongli didn't know how much damage his words had done to everyone. He continued, once you've mastered this move, you can practice this move too. Senior was said that besides being strong, a cultivator must also be good at escaping. This way, if you can't win, you can still run. So speed is a must. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Escaping was indeed a very important move for a cultivator. As the saying goes, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. If you can't win, run away. If you can't win, then fight again. Senior Hua is really interesting. Bei-chun smiled faintly. Now that you've mastered this move, do you want to go somewhere else to practice? Zhongli Mu shook his head. No, I'll stay here and cultivate. Then what are you training here for? Mo Yunjue's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. What I'm practicing now is the usage of elemental power. Zhongli Mu said frankly, when I was practicing previously, I was only using the most superficial of powers. However, there are actually many ways to use elemental powers. After mastering the usage of elemental energy, one's strength will become even stronger. Then how are you cultivating now? Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious. In fact, the upper realm was not good at using elemental powers. She vaguely felt that this might be the difference between the two planes. After going to the Darkness Temple and the Radiant Temple, her understanding of elemental powers had deepened. However, it was very clear that what Zhongli Mu was practicing now was more specific. Sensing everyone's curious gazes, Zhongli Mu said, "Do you want me to show you?" "Sure." Chapter 6020. Walk up it steadily. Bai Lian Che found it hard to believe. With the speed of the water and its weight, it would be difficult to rush up in an instant. Walking up steadily was even more difficult. When everyone heard this, they found it hard to believe. This kind of thing, most people wouldn't have thought of it. Zhongli Mu nodded affirmatively. That's right. Actually, this is quite difficult. It takes a lot of time to practice. In the beginning, I also felt that it was too difficult to achieve this. However, after cultivating for a while, I realized that it was actually possible. Noticing the confident smile on Zhongli Mu's face, everyone looked at each other. They understood that since their senior had asked Zhongli Mu to do this, it meant that it was possible. However, it was obvious how difficult the process was. I haven't mastered it yet. Let me demonstrate it to you. Zhongli Mu smiled faintly. I think that the senior's arrangement for all of you is the same as mine. This is the process that we have to go through. Hearing this, everyone lamented in their hearts. It seemed that this was a process that they had to go through. It was just that Zhongli Mu was walking ahead of them. In the next moment, Zhongli Mu leaped into the familiar river. He was as agile as a fish. In the blink of an eye, he was already at the bottom of the river. Just when everyone was curious, a fiery red light suddenly appeared at the bottom of the waterfall. The aura of the fire attribute instantly swept out. Fire and water were incompatible. Under the waterfall, the fires seemed to be extinguished at any time. However, Zhongli Mu used the fire attribute to create a square around his body. He controlled the four walls to slowly move upwards. His walking speed was very slow. Under the terrifying impact of the water, it seemed like he would be washed down at any time. However, he was as sturdy as a rock. He steadily moved upwards. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the fiery red light in the middle of the waterfall. If they didn't understand the purpose of this at first, they completely understood after seeing Zhongli Mu's demonstration. Zhongli Mu is using his fire attribute energy to create a few walls to surround himself. Not only that, his body isn't splashed by any water. Di Beichen's eyes were full of wisdom. He carefully observed every change in Zhongli Mu, and everything was clear to him. Fire and water are incompatible, but he was able to use the power of fire to resist the impact of the waterfall. He is indeed impressive, Mo Yunjue said in admiration. This process seemed very simple to them, but in reality, it was extremely difficult to control. In a place where the water element was everywhere, it was not easy to stabilize the fire element. Moreover, once the flames were extinguished by the water, everything would be considered a failure. Zhongli Mu's control over elemental energy is much better than ours, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, her clear eyes filled with anticipation. She would never feel disappointed about what she lacked. On the contrary, if there was something she wasn't good at, they just needed to learn. In the past, they had always relied on themselves to explore, and their progress was relatively slow. Now that they had a master to guide them, it was already a great help. Chapter 6021. Zhongli Mu's performance was just as he had said. Before he could even reach the middle of the waterfall, he had already failed and was knocked down. Returning to the group, Zhongli Mu combed his wet hair and said, This is all I can do now. The higher I go, the more difficult it is. I think I need to cultivate for a while before I can succeed. Good luck. We all believe in your ability. Everyone smiled. Zhongli Mu was a genius, so no one doubted that he could not do it. It was only a matter of time. Continue cultivating. I won't disturb you. Grandpa said that we need to hurry up and cultivate. Cultivators from the immortal region seem to have come here recently, so you all need to be careful. Zhongli Mu's expression turned serious. But I've been cultivating here for a while, and I haven't seen anyone come. So you don't need to be too worried. Grandpa and the others heard about this from somewhere else. If you really meet them, remember to act according to the situation. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. When she first met Zhongli Mu, he thought they were from the immortal region and was very wary of them. Cultivators from the immortal region were very unfriendly to people from the abandoned immortal forest. If they met them, they would be in trouble. We understand, don't worry. Then I'll go. Zhongli Mu smiled. We're close anyway. If anything happens, I'll rush over as soon as possible. After Zhongli Mu left, the group did not waste any more time and began to cultivate their sword techniques. Di Beichen had already successfully performed this technique. However, it took a long time to accumulate power and it was very powerful. Sword techniques required tens of thousands of practice before they could integrate it into their instincts. The speed at which they could perform it would also increase. Not only did they need to perform the technique, they also needed to perform it effortlessly. This way, their battle strength would increase greatly. The group stood in a row, as if they had returned to the time when they first started cultivating. However, after this attempt, everyone clearly noticed the changes in their bodies. As their strength increased, many parts of their bodies changed subtly. They were still practicing, but they no longer felt as difficult as before. On the contrary, everything became much easier. Perceiving this change, everyone's hearts were filled with joy. At the same time, Di Beichen, who had already successfully displayed it, was able to display it again more easily than before. Work hard. We can't be left behind by Zhongli Mu too much. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was as bright as the sun. Every time she experienced a life and death situation, she would deeply love the feeling of training with everyone. Life in the abandoned immortal forest was very peaceful. Every day at dawn, everyone would prepare breakfast and head towards the waterfall to cultivate. Granny Flower was also thinking of ways to help everyone improve. Every day, Granny Flower would concoct medicine. However, Bailey Hongzhuang learned that this potion was different from the potions they had used before. The effect was better and more in line with their current physical condition. Chapter 6022. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang was also pleasantly surprised. Granny Hua's medical skills were outstanding. It could be seen from the medicine that she had concocted. Actually, during this period of time, she had also taken the time to read the medical books that Granny Hua had given her. The medicinal herbs in the immortal domain were more abundant than those in the upper realm. The plane that she had lived in her previous life was also in the upper realm, so her medical skills were already very brilliant there. However, in the immortal domain, there were still many shortcomings. Fortunately, she was already very good at this, so even if she had never come into contact with these medicinal herbs, her memory was still very good. After memorizing all the names of these medicinal herbs, with Granny Hua's guidance, her progress was also not bad. Granny Hua clearly did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such amazing talent in this area. With just a few words of guidance, she could quickly deduce many things from one example. Many times, she did not say anything and just let Bailey Hongzhuang think for herself, and the latter could more or less deduce things. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang like this, she became more and more satisfied. Every master would be happy to have such an intelligent disciple. Although Moore also dabbled in this area of medical skills, he was not as attentive as you in this area. I originally thought that no one could properly inherit my mantle, but I didn't expect that the heavens would actually send me such a good disciple. Granny Hua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Her originally loving face was now even more amiable, and her gaze had an additional trace of seriousness. Hongzhuang, I formally ask you, are you willing to be my disciple? Once you become my disciple, you must abide by the rules that I set. After going to the immortal domain, you must also remember that you're my disciple. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the flower in surprise. Previously, Granny Hua had only casually guided her, and her progress was already very fast. Now that Granny Hua was willing to accept her as a disciple, the feeling was completely different. Master, please accept a bow from your disciple. Bailey Hongzhuang knelt on the ground and bowed deeply. Seeing this, the flower's smile became even more brilliant. Good disciple, quickly get up. Yes, master. Bailey Hongzhuang had a gentle smile on her face as she quickly walked to Hua Hua's side. Hua Hua caressed Bailey Hongzhuang's hair. She looked as affectionate as if she was her biological grandmother. Since you've already become my disciple, I'll pass on all my skills to you. From today onwards, you will cultivate during the day and learn medical skills from me at night. You will learn while soaking in medicinal baths. Medical skills are very useful, but as a cultivator, strength is also the foundation. You have to be prepared to suffer, the flower said in a deep voice. Master, don't worry. I'm not afraid of hardship. Water nodded in satisfaction. These days, she had been observing Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament. She was very satisfied with this girl's wisdom and temperament. She was neither arrogant nor rash, nor would she belittle herself. She was extremely hard-working in her cultivation and had never complained about it. She treated them with respect and kindness. This kind of girl, no matter where she was, would be liked by everyone. Of course, Di Beichen and the others were all very good children. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. None of them were bad. It was just that she and Hong Zhuang hit it off the best. The other little fellows obviously had no attainments in medical skills. As for learning from scratch, it was not very suitable for these little fellows. Chapter 6023. Hong Zhuang, did Granny Hua accept you as her disciple? Shangguan Yingying could not hide the joy on her face. Her happy expression made everyone think that she was the one who succeeded in becoming Granny Hua's disciple. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Yes, Granny Hua has already accepted me as her disciple. From now on, I will learn medicine from Granny Hua at night. That's great. Shangguan Yingying's face was filled with envy. Hongzhuang, I really envy you. Not only are you beautiful, but you're also smart. No matter where you go, you're very likable. You too. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Although I know you're comforting me, your words are very useful to me. Shangguan Yingying blinked her eyes and looked at Wen Ziren thoughtfully. I feel that the strength of the several seniors is very strong, beyond our imagination. Didn't Di Beichen say that Senior Yu and the others might be experts who live in seclusion? Now that Granny Hua has accepted a disciple, shouldn't we also work hard to please the seniors and become their disciples? As Shangguan Yingying's voice fell, everyone looked at each other, and their minds suddenly became lively. That's a good idea. I think we can give it a try. Ziren's eyes lit up. Previously, Xiao Sou was already proud of having a master who had been to the immortal domain. If we have a master from the immortal domain, wouldn't that be even more amazing? Looking at the situation, you seem to have a plan. Di Beichen's lips curled into an elegant arc. His voice was pleasant and magnetic. Ziren nodded. I feel that among the seniors, Senior Yu is the easiest to please. As long as we buy more delicious food for him, we'll be able to win him over sooner or later. Although the seniors had also given them pointers on the direction of cultivation, the effect of having a master or not was completely different. Just like how Hong Zhuang had also received pointers from Granny Hua. But when Granny Hua wanted to teach her something important, she chose to accept her as her disciple. In fact, the seniors didn't really teach them anything. They just casually gave them pointers, and it was already very helpful to them. If they really gave them pointers, wouldn't it be even better? Beichen, what do you think of my idea? Ziren asked expectantly. Di Beichen placed his right hand on his left and tapped his chin with his slender hand. Not bad. Ziren's expression changed. If you say it's not bad, then it's definitely not a problem. However, it's not enough for you to rely solely on bribing Senior Yu's approval. The magnetic voice sounded again. and D. Bachan's expression became more serious. Although Senior Yu usually looks very easy to talk to, he won't easily accept a disciple in this kind of matter. The most important thing is sincerity. Of course, flattery is also very effective to a certain extent. Hearing this, a trace of seriousness appeared on Wenziren's face. You're right. Actually, Senior Yu has always been very good to us. I want to go and sound him out. If there's hope, we have to fight for it. Speaking of which, Zhongli Mu is the one that we envy the most. Bali Yinshe suddenly said. As soon as these words came out, everyone had a look of agreement. The seniors had watched Zhongli Mu grow up and had undoubtedly taught him all their abilities. That was why Zhongli Mu's strength was already so abnormal at such a young age. Why don't we acknowledge Zhongli Mu as our master? Haha. Saying this, Ziren couldn't help but laugh.